Chapter 294. The sky was dark and dusk was approaching. In the wilderness, a figure was walking alone. He was tall and handsome, with long hair tied behind his head at will, revealing a sharp and handsome face. On his back, he carried a quaint black saber and a ferocious bow that seemed to be made of skulls. This man was Lin Sun. After leaving Mist City, he set out alone along a fixed route. Now 2 days had passed. In these 2 days, Lin Sun slept in the open air. Except for a few ignorant beasts, he did not encounter any danger. But Lin Sun was not careless at all. This time, the enemy came from the Forbidden City, which was powerful enough to make a big shot in Heiyao Shrine choose to betray. Now that they wanted to stop him from entering Mist City, they would inevitably send the most elite and tyrannical forces. In order to be able to fight at the first time in any emergency, Lin Sun carried the flowing light saber made by himself and the mysterious insignificant bow on his back. At the same time, he maintained a unique rhythm at the speed of moving forward. In this way, he could save his physical strength to the greatest extent. This was a skill learned from the bloodthirsty camp. It seemed trivial, but when he encountered real danger, it could show its real value. Under the setting sun, Lin Sun's figure was like a wisp of smoke, flying in the wilderness with lush vegetation. His whereabouts were erratic. It was hard to notice him without looking carefully. It's been 2 days. Normally, the enemy should have noticed my existence. Maybe they have set up a heavy ambush on the road ahead? Lin Sun thought as he moved forward. According to the map, this wasteland was called the Bloodwolf Plains, and it covered an area of over 50 kilometers. It was extremely vast, and it got its name because packs of blood wolves frequently roamed within it. For Lin Sun, blood wolves were not dangerous, but this wilderness was very dangerous. Because the terrain here was gentle, there was almost no hiding place except the grass on the ground, and it was extremely easy to expose himself. But there was no way. If Lin Sun wanted to go to the Forbidden City, he must cross the plain of Bloodwolf. As long as the enemy sent some scouts, they could easily find his whereabouts. Not long after, Lin Sun suddenly caught a glimpse of a black spot flashing in the extremely high sky. Because it was too far away, Lin Sun couldn't see it clearly. Lin Sun frowned immediately. As far as he knew, the enemy wouldn't send practitioners higher than Gang Spirit Realm this time, which meant that there couldn't be Spirit Realm overmatches who had the ability to fly in the sky and burrow underground. From this, it could be concluded that even if the black dot in the sky was a practitioner, it could not be sent by the enemy. At the same time, Lin Sun had learned about the situation on the plain of Bloodwolf along the way. He was very clear that the birds living in the plain of Bloodwolf could only fly at a height of thousands of meters, while the black spot was at least tens of thousands of meters high. From this, it could be determined that the black dot was definitely not from the Bloodwolf plain. Interesting. Lin Sun was lost in thought. There was still no danger on the way, but it didn't make Lin Sun relaxed. Instead, he became more vigilant. Because night had come. Night was always the most suitable natural environment for killing. If the enemy wanted to ambush and assassinate, it was impossible not to take advantage of this unique environment. Until the night covered the sky, the whole plain of Bloodwolf was already dark. From time to time, there were bursts of shrill howls like ghosts crying and gods howling, which was extremely horrifying. Rustle, the night wind blew the grass and gave rise to waves that emitted rustling sounds in the night. It was like the movements of wandering ghosts, and it added a sense of mystery and ghastly to the atmosphere. Lin Sun didn't move forward anymore. It was too dangerous to hurry at this time. He chose a place with lush bushes and took out a bronze object that looked like a roulette. This object was called Awakening Globe, which was branded with 16 spiritual tattoos. As long as it was activated with spiritual stones, it could spread invisible waves of power. Within a range of 100 zhang, once an expert with cultivation power approached, this invisible power would suddenly collapse, causing the cultivator to become vigilant. The most wonderful thing was that the invisible power released by Awakening Globe was extremely ethereal. Unless a strong practitioner of Tao Insight Realm who could perceive the wonders of heaven and earth came here, he could not perceive this kind of power at all. The only drawback was that this object also consumed a lot of spiritual stones. Lin Sun would never use it at will without special circumstances. This was one of the gadgets Lin Sun refined before he left Mist City, which was not sold in the market at all. After starting Awakening Globe, Lin Sun sat cross-legged on the ground and meditated quietly. Today, Lin Sun had already reached the mastery of Human Gang Realm and had the potential to break through to the Earth Gang Realm. But Lin Sun was not in a hurry. His current cultivation was like a cup full of water. When the water was full and overflowed, his cultivation would naturally break through. There was no need to force it. This natural way of breakthrough could not only tap the greatest potential of practitioners, but also make them have a solid foundation far beyond their peers when they were promoted. In the night, Lin Sun looked tranquil like an ancient well without ripples. His whole body was full of qi. From the appearance alone, there was no fluctuation of breath. In his body, the surging power of gang spirit had already boiled to the extreme. Under the quenching of the windstorm millstone, it was glowing with a dreamy blue luster. But Lin Sun had just practiced for less than 2 hours when his heart suddenly palpitated. He stopped practicing at once and opened his eyes. At this time, the invisible power released by Awakening Globe began to collapse. Sure enough, it's coming, a cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes. He got up quietly and put away the Awakening Globe on the ground. Then he bent his back and crawled in the lush grass like a vigilant and calm cheetah. The power of perception in his sea of consciousness spread like ripples. The night was as dark as ink. A few hundred feet away, several silhouettes had appeared out of nowhere. They walked forward step by step without making a sound, as if they were ghosts from hell. But under Lin Sun's powerful perception, those ghostly figures that were hard to detect were clearly reflected. 5, 10, 20 Lin Sun's mind was as calm as ice and snow. In an instant, he judged that a total of 30 practitioners were coming to him from all directions. These practitioners were all masked in black. Their breath was heavy and their actions were tacit. It was obvious that they were a group of well-trained and ruthless characters. This didn't make Lin Sun feel emotional. What really puzzled him was how these guys found him. This was very important. If he couldn't figure this out, no matter where he went and where he hid, the enemies would inevitably surround him like sharks smelling blood. But now was not the time to think about this. Almost at the first time, Lin Sun picked up Insignificance Bow and gently hooked the bowstring like red blood with his fingertip. Insignificance Bow, a mysterious spiritual weapon that Lin Sun obtained by chance, gave out a cold and terrifying breath as soon as it was used. In an instant, Lin Sun's mind and emotions seemed to disappear, and he entered a strange state of absolute calmness. At the same time, in Lin Sun's senses, the world seemed to become different. The sound of the wind, insects, air flow, and the subtle fluctuations of the enemy's breathing. Everything became very clear. In an instant, Lin Sun's consciousness locked on a practitioner in front of him. This person had the strongest breath and was obviously the leader. Without the slightest hesitation, the fingers that were placed on the bowstring loosened, and the body of the bow that seemed to be made from numerous skulls was suffused with a wisp of a mysterious sheen that seemed like flowing water. In an instant, a shapeless spirit arrow had already soundlessly passed through space and vanished under the night sky. Bang! Almost at the same time, a practitioner who was stealthily moving 100 meters away suddenly felt a pain in his throat. The next moment, his whole body flew out and fell to the ground, unable to get up again. "Big brother!" Exclamations of shock resounded out under the veil of the night. Someone charged over and immediately saw that Big Brother had perished on the spot a long time ago. His pupils bulged out while a bloody hole appeared on his throat, and his face was covered in terror and bewilderment, seeming as if he still didn't dare believe his eyes before his death. "What's the matter?" In other places there was a burst of questioning. Before that person could answer, there was a muffled sound. In different areas, practitioners had no time to react, and their throats were pierced by spiritual arrows. Blood burst out and they died on the spot. Because the speed was too fast, those practitioners didn't have time to scream until they died. This sudden scene caused the scene to become completely chaotic. "Oh no! The target has found us. The situation has changed. Kill the enemy with all your strength. Hurry up! We can't give him time to sneak attack and shoot arrows." Loud shouts sounded one after another. In the wilderness under the night sky, many figures rushed up from different places and rushed to Lin Sun. At this time, Lin Sun had already put away the insignificant bow and pulled out the flowing light saber on his back. The distance was too close. He killed people with bows and arrows just now by surprise. Now the enemy had reacted, so he could only change his strategy. Kill. It was just a distance of 300 meters. For practitioners, it was almost instantaneous. Soon, a practitioner had rushed to Lin Sun's head and chopped down with his sword. Clatter, the sword light, like a dazzling light, tore the dark night. But Lin Sun didn't dodge. He rushed forward with his saber, and his black eyes were full of indifference and coldness. Bang! The flowing light saber flashed, and the opponent's sword light burst like paper. Lin Sun had taken the opportunity to step forward and cut off a bloody head with his saber. As soon as he finished all this, 4 or 5 practitioners rushed from different directions. It seemed that they were going to besiege and kill Lin Sun. Lin Sun snorted coldly, and the flowing light saber cut through the air. In an instant, there were many illusory saber shadows like flowing light. Chapter 295. The saber light flashed. It seemed simple, but in that flash there were many mysteries. The saber force chopped, rotated, stabbed, and shook. It was changeable and unpredictable. With a series of muffled sounds, the enemies who besieged Lin were either cut in the neck, torn in the chest, pierced in the throat, or shattered in the head. All of them were killed on the spot in an instant, and their blood splashed everywhere. It was terrible. Those enemies were not easy to deal with. If they were the selected elites, they would have experienced hundreds of battles and had strong combat power. But in the blink of an eye, all of them had lost their lives under a single blade, and the bloody scene was enough to shake one's soul. Compared with the battle in the province test, Lin Sun was like another person at this time, decisive and ruthless. And this was Lin Sun's real fighting style. The province test was an assessment after all, which had nothing to do with life and death. It was also impossible for Lin Sun to expose his true face in the battle. Only at this time, without the shackles of various rules, could Lin Sun give full play to what he had learned. The smell of blood permeated the night. Many enemies were shocked by Lin Sun's fierce and tyrannical fighting power, and their faces changed suddenly. They had long known that the target they were going to deal with this time was very tricky, and they had already made thorough preparations to besiege and kill him. But when the real battle started, they found that they still underestimated the terror of the target. From the very beginning of the confrontation, their leader and 4 companions had been silently sniped and fell to the ground. At this time, several companions were killed by one saber. All this was too incredible and too shocking. They even suspected that the target was not a human gang realm teenager at all, but a genius who was proficient in killing. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure jumped. Before the enemies rushed up again, he had taken the initiative to kill them. At this moment, his figure was like lightning, and his saber was dancing like flowing light. He launched a bloody killing in a simple, accurate, and direct way. The saber method was still the 6-word saberplay. However, compared to before, there was an indescribable charm to his saber technique. It was as if it carried the might of the heavens and the earth, and it possessed a majestic power that shook one's heart. This was inseparable from the RFS Lin practiced. In the third test of Green Cloud Path, Secret Realm of 100 Battles, Lin experienced many life and death situations. Finally, he absorbed the advantages of all kinds of martial arts and perfected the RFS Reaching for the Stars. The mystery and essence of RFS Reaching for the Stars had also become a part of Lin's saber cultivation. Therefore, when he performed the 6-word saber play, although the moves were exactly the same as before, the power contained in each move had become completely different, and there were many more mysteries of RFS Reaching for the Stars. Of course, this power couldn't be compared with the real Reaching for the Stars, but it was much stronger than before. In next to no time, shrill cries resounded ceaselessly under the night sky as the enemies were crushed and killed on the spot. From beginning to end, no one could block Lin Sun's saber. This bloody scene was not a battle at all, but a massacre. Although the enemies were numerous, they were as vulnerable as paper under Lin's attack. Bang! Lin Sun waved his saber, and the giant hammer in the hand of an enemy was smashed. The momentum of the saber didn't decrease, and the enemy's body was cut in half. Blood mixed with colorful internal organs poured on the ground. It had to be said that Lin Sun was indeed too powerful in this battle. Not only was his fighting power unparalleled, but even the flowing light saber in his hand was a peerless spiritual treasure. Under such circumstances, it was really difficult for those enemies to fight against Lin Sun with their fighting power alone. What? After killing the practitioner with the giant hammer, Lin Sun was ready to continue his killing. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes as if he had noticed something. His body suddenly stopped in place, and the flowing light saber in his hand suddenly rotated and drew a lot of saber shadows. Almost at the same time, there was a strong and short sound around: bang, bang, bang. In the night sky, groups of dazzling lights like fireworks suddenly lit up one after another. They were wrapped in sharp whistling sounds, tearing the void and shooting at Lin Sun from all directions. Spiritual short crossbows. And there were more than 10 of them. The most terrible thing was that all the short crossbows shot at the same time, blocking all the escape routes of Lin Sun. There was no way to avoid them at all. If it were other practitioners, they would have been desperate because there was no way to avoid them at all. At this time, Lin Sun did not dodge. As early as the moment he noticed that something was wrong, he had already cut out a lot of saber shadows to defend himself. A strange scene appeared. When the first crossbow shot at Lin Sun, it was gently pulled by the heavy saber shadows before it got close, and the direction of the crossbow suddenly deviated. With a bang, it shot into the ground on one side of Lin Sun and blasted out a bottomless hole. This was the whirl of the 6-word saber play, which could overcome hardness with softness and move 1,000 kilograms with little effort. With a drag and a pull, it could achieve the wonderful power of using force to dispel force. Bang bang bang, in the following time, such a strange scene continued. The crossbow arrows hit the ground one after another, making earth-shaking collision sound. Smoke and dust filled the air, and mud splashed everywhere. But Lin Sun, who was standing in the eye of the storm, was unscathed. Fuck. He's still alive? Damn it, this guy is a monster. Let's go. The enemy is tricky. No matter how hard we fight, we will die. When they witnessed such a scene, all the enemies that used crossbows were flabbergasted and horrified, and they simply didn't dare believe their eyes. But the fact told them that all this was true. This scared them out of their wits. Without any hesitation, they turned around and fled. It was so terrible that even crossbow arrows could not kill Lin Sun. Who else could be Lin Sun's opponent? So when Lin Sun defused all the crossbow arrows one by one, he found that the remaining enemies had taken this opportunity to escape. But Lin Sun was not in the mood to chase them at this moment. It seemed easy to defuse the crossbow arrows just now, but only he himself knew how powerful the impact force he suffered each time he defused a crossbow arrow. For example, at this moment, Lin Sun's qi and blood were boiling in his body, and his tendons and bones were aching faintly. If he didn't force himself to hold back, he would have almost coughed up blood. This was the horror of the spiritual crossbow. As long as the trigger was pulled, it would release a chilling and fatal power in an instant. With Lin Sun's current strength, he would have been killed on the spot if he hadn't defended himself with swirl formula in time. Lin Sun had no doubt about this. As a spiritual tattooist, he naturally knew the horror of the spiritual crossbow better than other practitioners. Taking a few deep breaths, Lin Sun tried to suppress the rolling qi and blood in his body. Then he came to a dead enemy and found a half-foot-long bronze crossbow. Holy crossbow! Lin Sun recognized the origin of this crossbow at a glance. It was one of the most common standard crossbows in the Empire. With a shooting range of 1,500 meters, it could hold 12 standard armor-piercing bolts. It was as fast as lightning and could kill a Sea Spirit Realm practitioner in a sneak attack. Lin Sun thought for a while and searched other dead enemies. As expected, he found more than a dozen holy crossbows of the same type. If I didn't warn them just now, they would all use holy crossbows as soon as they came up. Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart and didn't dare to think about it anymore. While searching for the enemy's relics, Lin Sun also got some elixirs for healing and supplementing physical strength, as well as some equipment and weapons needed for fighting. After careful identification, Lin Sun found that the elixirs and equipment were all of the same specifications and of extremely high quality, which couldn't be compared with the ordinary goods on the market. Obviously, these enemies must have prepared a large number of marching materials and equipment at the beginning of the action. Standard holy crossbow, uniform weapons, and elixirs. It seems that the enemy has made a lot of capital to deal with me this time. Lin Sun pondered for a while, put away the seized trophies and left quickly in the night. In the same night, in an ancient mansion with a history of thousands of years in the Forbidden City. The room had been completely renovated. In the center was a long stone table for holding meetings. On the wall behind the stone table hung a large precise map. At this time, Su Qianjing was standing in front of the map with his hands behind his back. His clear eyes were full of concentration and contemplation. At this time, a guard suddenly hurried in and said, "Child, there's news." The target appeared in Blood Wolf Plain. The 5 or 6 young people sitting around the stone table were all excited. They were sent by Qi Tsangmei to be Su Qianjing's assistants. They had been waiting here for 3 days. They were very impatient. Now they finally heard the news of the target. How could they not be excited? Only Su Qianjing seemed to have expected this. He looked as calm as before. He turned his head and waved to the guard to leave. Then he said to the assistants around the stone table, since the target appeared in Blood Wolf Plain, he must choose to come to the Forbidden City from the middle route. All the assistants nodded. Su Qianjing looked serious and conveyed the order. Now there are 3 things for you to do. First, withdraw the forces stationed on the east and west routes, and let all of them rush to the stronghold on the middle route and wait for orders. Second, mobilize all the Wind Shadowhawks to monitor all the movements and traces of the target in all directions. I need to get information about the target as soon as possible. Third, dispatch 6 Purple Ing battleships to wait behind Tianmu Mountain and Ingqiu Stream for orders. His tone was calm and orderly, and it was filled with a peerless elegance of having everything under control. It caused all the assistants to unconsciously nod and accept their orders. Su Qianjing had turned back to the map hanging on the wall. Through the information obtained before, he had a vague hunch that the target this time was not so easy to deal with. But only in this way, Su Qianjing had a little interest. Otherwise, he wouldn't bother to make a layout. When the assistants were ready to take action, suddenly the guard hurried into the room again and said with a dignified look, "Child, the first encirclement and suppression mission failed." "What?" All the assistants were stunned and almost couldn't believe their ears. Not long after the news of the target's appearance came back, the first encirclement and suppression mission failed. Who could believe it? Chapter 296. The group of deputies was bewildered. Standing in front of the map, Su Qianjing turned around and asked calmly, "Is there any record?" The guard nodded and waved his hand. A wind shadowhawk with dark wings flew out. Su Qianjing stepped forward, grabbed the neck of the wind shadowhawk and pinched it. With a scream, a bead full of water was spat out from its mouth. The bead spun and floated in the air. Suddenly, a screen of light appeared, showing a bloody and tragic battle. The perspective of the light curtain was from the sky, and all the details of the whole battle could be seen clearly and comprehensively. As the screen of light changed, the expressions of the assistants changed indeterminately as well, and they gasped incessantly. In this first encirclement and suppression action, a total of 5 Heaven Gang Realm, 10 Earth Gang Realm and 15 Human Gang Realm elites were dispatched together. There were a total of 30 people, each equipped with a divine crossbow and a full set of equipment and weapons. However, it was precisely such a well-prepared force that couldn't withstand a single blow like a piece of paper before the target. In merely a short moment, they were crushed to the point of being utterly defeated and unable to resist at all. This was extremely astounding, especially when they saw that even the overwhelming attacks of the divine crossbow were easily neutralized by the target. The eyes of the assistants were wide open, and their expressions were lifeless. "Isn't he too strong?" The information they had collected about the target had already let them know that the young man who could become the first in the province test of Southwest Province was certainly not an ordinary person. But when they witnessed this bloody and almost slaughtering battle with their own eyes, they realized that their target this time wasn't just an ordinary figure, he was simply a heaven-defying monster. Soon, the light curtain disappeared, and the atmosphere in the room seemed a little silent for a while. Only Su Qianjing seemed to feel nothing. He looked as calm as before. He threw the bead to the wind shadowhawk, and then ordered the guard to leave. Then he sat in the chair and meditated. "Child Su, do you want to change the action plan?" Someone couldn't help asking, breaking the silence. Su Qianjing suddenly smiled and said, "No, this first encirclement and suppression was originally a test. I didn't expect to kill the target at all. Through this matter, I roughly judged that the combat effectiveness of the target is not much different from what I expected before." Probing? The faces of the deputies changed slightly, and they felt cold in their hearts. Just to test the strength of the target, Su Qianjing sent 30 elite practitioners to die. How cruel he was! However, after this incident, they no longer dared to underestimate this seemingly thin and weak master tactician of the younger generation. Perhaps, only those with a heart of stone could have the power to devise strategies and take every possibility into account in a battle situation? Su Qianjing didn't seem to notice the change of people's expressions. He said in a calm and emotionless voice, "Everyone, please continue to follow my order. The show has just begun, and the real highlights will be staged soon on the outskirts of the imperial capital, at the peak of the 9,900 feet high observatory." The night wind was biting cold. The flamen stood alone on it, staring at the night sky with a pair of eyes full of vicissitudes of life. There was a kind of purity and brightness that only belonged to children in those grayish-brown pupils. As for many days in the past, the flamen was still dressed in a black robe, with white hair and a stooped figure, as if a gust of wind could blow him away. Everyone in the imperial capital knew that the flamen was indeed very old, but his wisdom and strength had become more and more powerful with the precipitation of years. As for how strong the flamen was, no one knew. There was a sound of footsteps. With the sound of footsteps, a thin and vigorous figure strode to the top of the observatory. This was a young man with an extremely outstanding appearance. He had slanted brows, starry eyes, and a graceful bearing. Every single move he made carried an innate aura of nobility, and his expression was restrained and not overbearing. "Greetings, Flamen." The young man bowed and saluted with impeccable etiquette. The flamen didn't look back and said softly, "The action has begun, but you seem to be a little impatient." The young man looked calm and said, "It's not impatient. I'm just curious about how he survived after his spiritual vein was dug away." The flamen said, "Just curious?" The young man was stunned and said with a smile, "Of course not. At least, I really don't want to see him return to the Forbidden City." The flamen was silent for a moment. He looked up at the night sky and sighed. There are many people in the Forbidden City who don't want to see any waves caused by what happened that year. So, like you, they don't want to see the child return. Speaking of this, he turned around and stared at the young man with his vicissitudes of life. He said, "However, whether you want to or not, the agreed action has begun. What you have to do is to wait for the result calmly, instead of leaving the imperial palace in the middle of the night and appearing on the observatory." The young man's face changed slightly, and then he showed a respectful expression and said, "You're right. I'm too impatient. But I'm still puzzled. Why don't you send the most powerful force to do this?" This was the reason why he came here tonight. The flamen turned his head and looked at the empty night sky again, saying, "You'll understand later. From the moment the child's origin was confirmed, it's not so easy to kill him." Obviously, the young man was not satisfied with this answer. He frowned and said, "Is it because of Heiyao Shrine?" The flamen shook his head. "Even if Heiyao Shrine doesn't show up, they won't change all the arrangements of this action." The young man was stunned and couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Flamen, can you give me a definite answer? Why on earth?" The flamen shook his head. Seeing this, the young man couldn't help but sigh. After thinking for a long time, he finally gritted his teeth and plucked up his courage to ask, "So, are you willing to see him enter the Forbidden City alive?" The flamen still didn't speak, as if he was unaware of it. The young man's expression changed slightly. Finally, he took a deep breath and restrained his dissatisfaction. He cupped his hands and said, "Goodbye." After that, he turned around and left. When he just walked down the observatory, he suddenly heard the old and indifferent voice of the flamen, "Ninth Prince, I have a word of advice. No matter who dares to effect this action without authorization, he is doomed to die. Remember, no matter who it is." The young man was stiff all over, and there was a chill in his heart. He stood there in a daze as if falling into an ice cave. It was the first time for him to hear such threatening words from the flamen in these years. After a long time, the young man raised his head and looked up at the top of the observatory, which was 9,900 feet high. After a while, he took back his eyes and turned into the darkness. At the top of the observatory, the flamen stared at the night sky and sighed. It's time to solve the things left behind in those years. In the Castle of the Night, the conversation between the old man and the Queen of the Dark Night was heard. "I've found out that the force responsible for the action comes from Qi family. Qi Tsangmei, the rising star of Qi family, is fully in charge of it. Qi Tsangmei invited Su Qianjing, the tactical master of strategy branch of Green Deer School last year, to arrange the plan. The force mobilized is not beyond the scope of Gang's spirit realm." "Oh, have you found out the real intention of the old guy in the observatory?" "I can't find out for the time being. Keep investigating and pay close attention to this matter. I have a feeling that if we can figure out this matter, we can find out the real reason why Lu Boya suddenly disappeared and chose to live in Ziyuan mine prison. Yes. In addition, go and find out the situation of those clansmen left after the catastrophe of Lin family. Although the things of that year have passed, if Lin Sun can really return to the Forbidden City, he should know these things." "Miss, it seems a little inappropriate. Lin Sun is different from other clansmen of Lin family. His mother is, don't say more. Just do as I say." "Yes." Lin Sun didn't know that when he chose to go to the Forbidden City, many turbulent undercurrents had arisen in the Forbidden City because of his decision. It had been 7 days since the end of the battle in Blood Wolf Plain. Lin Sun had already left Blood Wolf Plain, passed through a swamp and came to a mountain range with undulating peak. This mountain range was called Maple Night. There were many fierce beasts in the mountains. Across the Maple Night mountain range, there was a town built on the mountain ahead. Generally speaking, pedestrians and traders on the road often used spiritual shuttles to cross the Maple Night mountain, which not only saved time but also was extremely safe. In front of the Maple Night mountain range, there was a specially built post station, in which many spiritual shuttles were parked. The purpose of this post station was to serve pedestrians on both sides of the Maple Night mountain range. It was noon. On the open field in front of the post station, many pedestrians had already been waiting. Most of them were ordinary people, but there were also many practitioners. After all, even practitioners could not fly in the void without the cultivation of sea spirit realm. If they wanted to cross the Maple Night mountain range safely and conveniently, it was undoubtedly the best choice to take spiritual shuttles. Before long, Lin Sun appeared in front of the post station. His appearance immediately caused many people to feel uneasy. Even some practitioners showed expressions of wariness and bewilderment. At this time, Lin Sun carried a saber and bow on his back, and his clothes were stained with blood. Between his eyebrows and eyes, there was a sharp light flowing and a murderous aura, which brought people a sense of oppression. In particular, the insignificant bow on his back was made of white bones and skulls. The bowstring was as red as blood, and it was filled with a ferocious and dense evil spirit, which made people tremble and feel creepy when they saw it from a distance. Seeing that people were avoiding him as if he was a snake or a scorpion, Lin Sun was slightly stunned. He immediately came to his senses, quickly restrained his aura, and smiled apologetically at those pedestrians. During these 7 days, he'd encountered numerous ambushes and encirclement. Even though he'd overcome danger every single time, it caused his mind to be strained at all times, and he didn't dare slack off in the slightest so as to avoid encountering a sudden attack and suffering misfortune. But in this way, it caused his entire body to imperceptibly carry a wisp of a murderous aura. He was like a sharp sword that was about to be unsheathed and revealed its edge, and this was the reason why those people in the surroundings felt uneasy and terrified. Chapter 297. This was the client's cached BG. Everyone could try to delete and add the Heavenly Sun's Battle Chronicles from the client's bookshelf. You could also uninstall and reinstall the software. Of course, the simplest and crudest way was to use the computer to read it. Goldfish was deeply apologetic about this small mistake. She had a fever and was confused. She was really sorry to everyone. She would update more in the future to make it up to everyone. Chapter 298. After restraining his breath, people around him relaxed a lot, but they still looked at Lin Sun with fear, as if he was a dangerous person. Lin Sun could do nothing about it. Fortunately, before long, a spiritual shuttle started and was about to set sail. After paying a silver coin, Lin Sun and a group of pedestrians boarded the spiritual shuttle and rushed to the sky with a roar. In the spacious carriage, Lin Sun's seat was empty, and no one was willing to approach him. Lin Sun was happy to be quiet and took the opportunity to count his gains these days. In the 7 days after leaving the plain of Blood Wolf, he encountered 3 more ambushes. The first one happened in a jungle. There were 40 enemies, all of whom were good at jungle assassination. Each of them was equipped with a special thornwood crossbow. They were distributed in different areas of the jungle, appearing and disappearing like ghosts, and were extremely difficult to deal with. But in the face of Lin Sun, who came from the bloodthirsty camp, the jungle attack tactics they adopted were simply child's play. Lin Sun directly counterattacked them with the same assassination tactics. In the end, only 13 people were lucky enough to escape, and the rest were all killed. After this battle, Lin Sun was injured 7 times, and gained dozens of bottles of various elixirs, 16 intact thornwood crossbows, and 23 spiritual weapons of various type. The second ambush took place in the swamp. There were 50 enemies, who were good at fighting in formations. They tried to kill Lin Sun in one fell swoop with the help of a spiritual tattoo killing formation. But obviously, their tactics were wrong from the beginning. If Shu Jin and Chu Feng knew that someone used a spiritual formation to deal with Lin Sun, they would definitely laugh their heads off. Anyone who knew the details of Lin Sun would never do such a crazy and stupid thing. The result of this battle was that a killing formation with spiritual tattoos that had been ambushed was taken over by Lin Sun. With his own spiritual tattoos, he easily seized the control of the killing formation and killed all the enemies in one fell swoop. Lin Sun was not only unscathed, but also easily got an amazing trophy. The third ambush took place on a lake. The enemy mobilized a large number of ships to encircle and kill Lin Sun on the water. The enemy had obviously learned a lesson from the previous battles. This time, they were very well prepared. Not only did they have ships, but they were also equipped with 200 elite practitioners and a large amount of battle equipment. However, to the enemy's surprise, Lin accidentally slipped away from the bottom of the lake with the help of the Amrita Saint Pearl in his sea of consciousness. When the enemy noticed that something was wrong, Lin had already escaped. A well-prepared ambush had failed just like that. This was too embarrassing. Thinking of this, Lin Sun couldn't help but raise a strange curve at the corner of his mouth. This was luck. When luck was good, even God would help. When luck was bad, no matter how well arranged the ambush was, it would end in vain. Of course. After experiencing these ambushes, the enemy would definitely become even more vigilant, and when they moved out once more, the forces they sent out would absolutely be extraordinary. Lin Sun was also clear about this, and had made preparations for it. After counting all the trophies, Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The crudest way to accumulate wealth in the world was undoubtedly to plunder the trophies. Just like now, the total value of the trophies he collected along the way was at least more than 10,000 gold coins. "Brother, you have a lot of blood on you. My mother said that she would give this set of clothes to you." Suddenly, a childish voice rang out, awakening Lin Sun from his contemplation. Looking up, he saw a little girl of 3 or 4 years old hobbling over with a stack of clothes in her hands not far from the carriage. The little girl's hair was tied up in a ponytail, and her big eyes were blinking, which was very cute. Lin Sun was stunned. Glancing around, he saw a woman in plain clothes looking at him with a smile not far away. This warmed Lin Sun's heart, and he felt a long-lost warmth. They met by chance, but he could be kindly cared by a stranger, which made Lin Sun feel touched. "Thank you, little sister." Lin Sun squatted down, rubbed the little girl's head with a smile, and accepted the set of clothes. He didn't lack clothes, but the gift was more kind and warm to him, so he couldn't bear to refuse it. "Goodbye, brother." The little girl waved her hand obediently, and then turned back to the woman. Lin Sun nodded to the woman with a smile, and carefully accepted the clothes. He thought that after the spiritual shuttle passed through the Maple Mount, he would find a chance to buy some gifts for the mother and son to express his gratitude and goodwill. "Brother, can I have a chat with you?" Suddenly, the little girl came over again, and looked at Lin Sun expectantly with her big black eyes. "Of course." Lin Sun immediately smiled, sat the little girl on his lap, and said, "Little sister, what do you want to talk about with me?" "Brother, they are all afraid of you. Is it because you are very fierce?" "Well, do you think I am fierce?" "No, I think you are very beautiful, like a porcelain doll hidden at home." "Beautiful? Ha ha ha, little sister, beautiful is not used to describe boys." An adult and a child engaged in a childish conversation. The little girl was very excited, and Lin Sun was also enjoying it. They were happy and harmonious. Gradually, some passengers in the distance relaxed a lot, and their attitude towards Lin Sun was no longer as scrupulous and evasive as before. And all of this was caused by the kindness of a child. Perhaps this was the power of warmth and kindness. In the old mansion of the Forbidden City, Su Qianjing sat at the table, analyzing the intelligence. His clear eyes were full of calmness and wisdom. On the table, there were detailed intelligence sent these days, and some of them were analyzed and summarized by Su Qianjing himself. In the end, Su Qianjing came to 3 accurate conclusions. The target, who came from the bloodthirsty camp, mastered extremely skilled means of surprise attack and anti-surprise attack, and had an extremely sharp insight into danger. This could be seen from the ambush in the jungle a few days ago. This was a factor mentioned in the previous intelligence, but it had not been paid attention to. No one thought that the means the target learned in the bloodthirsty camp could be so excellent and perfect, including Su Qianjing. This also led to the final failure of a jungle raid strategy formulated a few days ago. However, this did not affect Su Qianjing's mood. A failure in exchange for a further understanding of the target, which was enough. What really surprised Su Qianjing was the battle that took place in the swamp. At that time, a killing formation of spiritual tattoos was set up in the swamp, called 9 Dragons Binding Spirits Formation, which was created by a spiritual tattooist of Qi family. It was an extremely powerful trap formation. Let alone human gang realm practitioners, even sea spirit realm practitioners could not escape the doom of being killed if they were trapped in it. In order to set up this formation, Su Qianjing mobilized a lot of manpower and materials. He thought that it was enough to make the target unable to escape, but he failed in the end. Su Qianjing had found out the root cause of the failure, which made him realize that the target was a spiritual tattooist with profound attainments in spiritual tattoos in addition to extremely powerful combat effectiveness and skilled fighting means. This was incredible. When making this judgment, Su Qianjing couldn't help doubting it, but the bloody facts told him that it was true. Otherwise, it was impossible for the target to seize the control of 9 Dragons Binding Spirits Formation in one fell swoop. Otherwise, the whole team might be wiped out in this battle. After confirming all this, Su Qianjing didn't feel frustrated at all. Instead, he became more and more interested in the encirclement and suppression of the target. For this reason, he took action once more, and he formulated a plan that could be said to be perfect. He was prepared to kill his target on the surface of a lake. But Su Qianjing didn't expect that the target would escape from the bottom of the lake quietly by deceiving others. When knowing all this, Su Qianjing couldn't help being stunned. He didn't expect that there was a human gang realm practitioner in the world who could walk at the bottom of the lake like walking on the ground. No matter how profound his cultivation was, it was impossible for him to stay at the bottom of the lake for a long time without the cultivation of sea spirit realm. But it just so happened that the target had done it. Moreover, it was precisely because of this that he had managed to avoid a fatal situation. From the appearance of the target to the present, they had carried out 4 encirclement and suppression operations, but all of them ended in failure. Su Qianjing didn't feel anything, but those deputies and subordinates couldn't sit still and kept making noise. Some people even thought that Su Qianjing's title of Tactical Master was undeserved. At this time, Su Qianjing was analyzing the intelligence, but a group of deputies nearby had been arguing with each other. Some thought that they should gather all their forces to crush the target head-on, while others thought that even if they didn't use all their forces, they should change their strategy and not be as conservative as before. In fact, they all revealed their dissatisfaction with Su Qianjing as the person in charge. Su Qianjing didn't say much. It was normal to complain. He was the one who made the real decision, unless they dared to disobey him. I just got the news that the target has taken the spiritual shuttle and plans to cross the Maple Mount by air. I wonder if Child Su has come up with any brilliant tactics? Someone asked in a strange tone. Others also looked at Su Qianjing. Although the words were harsh, Su Qianjing seemed to be unaware of it. He said calmly, "It's not too late to take action after he crosses the Maple Mount. I have arranged some means for this. I believe it should give the target a surprise." "Humph, it's too conservative. I remember that there are 6 new Xing battleships ready for this action. right? Isn't it better to take this opportunity to dispatch one to kill the target directly in the air? Someone snorted. Chapter 299. Su Qianjing frowned, glanced at the crowd and said in a deep voice, "There is more than one target in the spiritual shuttle. There are many innocent people. Can you bear the consequences if Ziying battleship is mobilized?" There was a hint of questioning in his voice. But what made Su Qianjing disappointed was that all the deputies showed a disapproving look. Someone even sneered, "Those who take the spiritual shuttle are just a group of pariahs. As long as they can kill the target, what's the big deal about sacrificing them?" Pariahs. This word stung Su Qianjing's heart at once. Before entering Green Deer School, Su Qianjing was also a pariah in the eyes of these rich and powerful children. "Child Su, don't hesitate any more. This is the best time to kill the target. As for the death of those pariahs, as long as we don't say it, who in the world will know?" Someone persuaded. "Oh, if Child Su is worried about taking responsibility, you can put all this on us. But to be honest, it's just erasing the lives of some pariahs. Even if you pierce the sky, no one will care about it." Someone chuckled and his words were full of contempt. Su Qianjing was silent. There was an unspeakable anger in his heart. Bang! At this moment the door was pushed open. Qi Tsangmei came in with a graceful figure and a sharp breath. "Qianjing, let's do it. I have issued an order to mobilize a Ziying battleship to the Maple Mount." Qi Tsangmei said indifferently. Su Qianjing narrowed his eyes, and his calm look finally changed at this moment. There was a trace of haze on his face. "Do you know that it's no different from slaughtering the people of the Empire?" Su Qianjing stood up, took a deep breath, and said coldly. Qi Tsangmei remained calm and just answered with a hum. All the deputies showed disdain. Originally, they had some respect for Su Qianjing. But with the failure of encirclement and suppression, they began to question Su Qianjing's ability and means. Their respect for Su Qianjing faded a lot. Until now, when they learned that Su Qianjing dared not make the wisest decision for the sake of some so-called pariahs, they all began to doubt whether Su Qianjing was so stubborn. Su Qianjing glanced around and saw the mockery and disdain in everyone's eyes. Suddenly, an unspeakable coldness and powerlessness surged in his heart. "I'm against it." Su Qianjing did not compromise. He was sticking to the last bottom line in his heart. "I'm sorry, young Master Su. From now on your task is complete. Leave the rest to me." Qi Tsangmei said indifferently. After several previous failures, she doubted Su Qianjing's tactical ability. Until now, when she learned that Su Qianjing gave up the best time to kill the target for some pariahs, she completely didn't believe Su Qianjing. "So, I can leave now?" Su Qianjing was stunned. Do you even need to ask? Master Tactician, young Master Su, you'd better leave quickly. Our temple is too small for a god like you." Someone couldn't help but sneer, and his words were filled with sarcasm. The others couldn't help but roar with laughter. Qi Tsangmei just frowned, but did not scold those deputies. She just looked at Su Qianjing and said seriously, "Child Su, please." He used the word please to show that he could not refuse. Su Qianjing was stunned for a long time. Finally, he took a deep breath and cupped his hands. "I've paid back the favor to your Qi family. Goodbye." After that, he turned around and pushed the door away. Is this returning the favor? It's polite enough that we didn't arrest this guy. What Master Tactician? From the moment the target appeared, all the tactical actions arranged ended in failure. If we still believe in him, we will be wiped out in this action. Behind him, there was a burst of sarcasm, which made Su Qianjing suddenly feel sad. He thought bitterly that these rich kids didn't know what tactics were. Merely a few failures had caused them to be flustered and restless, and it was simply laughable to the extreme. However, Su Qianjing also knew that these were the rich kids. When you were useful, they would treat you as a distinguished guest. When you were useless, they would abandon you like a worn shoe. Unfortunately, They didn't know how terrible the target was this time. Did they think that they could kill the target with Zing battleship? Naive. After the intelligence analysis collected these days, Su Qianjing had a strong feeling that the target was not so easy to be killed this time. If the target survived the bombardment of Zing battleship, Su Qianjing shook his head at once and stopped thinking about it. It was useless to think more. He had prepared a lot of backup plans to deal with the target. Unfortunately, it was useless now. In the room, a group of deputies were still sneering at Su Qianjing's unworthy reputation and soft-heartedness. They regarded Su Qianjing as an unworthy person. They had even decided to publicize Su Qianjing's unbearable and incompetence in the Forbidden City after killing the target this time, so that he would be completely discredited. Qi Tsangmei frowned imperceptibly when she saw the reaction of the people. There was a feeling of insecurity in her heart, but she soon abandoned it. The action had been launched. Qi Tsangmei didn't believe that the target called Spiritual Shuttle could withstand the bombardment of Zing battleship. This new kind of Zing battleship had just been developed. It was said that it was refined by Master Mo of the Academy of Spiritual Implements of the Empire. Its overall power was more than one level higher than before. It could be called the trump card of small battleship. Let alone killing a human gang realm practitioner, even a sea spirit realm practitioner couldn't resist the full blow of Zing battleship. Drip, drip in the quiet carriage, there was a sudden shrill warning sound, which immediately caused all the passengers to panic. They got up and looked around, at a loss. The spiritual shuttle was flying in the void. The most worrying thing was that there would be a sudden accident. In the past years of the Empire, there were many cases of spiritual shuttles falling and smashing. Thus, when they heard the warning, everyone panicked. Even the cultivators were no exception. This was because if they fell from such a high altitude, even they would be dead. Lin Sun was chatting with the little girl named Luluo. When he noticed the sudden change of the scene, he narrowed his eyes and stood up suddenly. Through the glazed window of the spiritual shuttle, it could be clearly seen that in the void far away, there was a small battleship with the shape of a sharp cone, which was dozens of meters long and covered with dark purple luster. It's the battleship of the Empire. It turns out that the battleship of the Empire is approaching. Fortunately, it should be all right. Many passengers could not help but feel relieved when they saw this scene. They had thought that something bad had happened. It turned out that it was just a battleship of the Empire. There was nothing to make a fuss about. Someone even joked, "I thought it was something serious." It turns out that the battleship of the Empire has come to escort us. Many people laughed. Only Lin Sun's heart sank and his hands and feet were cold. He recognized at a glance that this battleship was the brand new Zing battleship that he designed for old Mo. Such a battleship suddenly appeared here. Needless to say, it must be coming to deal with him. Sure enough, just as this thought flashed through Lin Sun's mind, he saw a dazzling beam of light suddenly emerging from the Zing battleship in the distance. Lin Sun was stiff all over and his pupils dilated. This was the sign of the spiritual cannon equipped with the Zing battleship being launched. This battleship was designed by Lin Sun. How could Lin Sun not recognize it? "Be careful, everyone!" Lin Sun's face was livid and he shouted loudly. He didn't expect that the enemy was so ruthless that they would destroy the whole spiritual shuttle in order to deal with him. They never considered the safety of those innocent people at all. Many passengers were astounded and didn't understand what was going on. However, there were also many who acutely noticed this scene, and they couldn't help but let out sharp cries of terror. All of a sudden, the inside of the spiritual shuttle was in chaos. The harsh warning sound kept ringing, and the frightened people screamed and cursed in despair and helplessness. At this moment, Lin Sun couldn't care about anything else at all. He ran all his strength to hold the little girl Luoluo in his arms. He gritted his teeth and slashed at the wall of the carriage with a roar. Boom! The carriage was broken. But almost at the same time, The spiritual cannon launched by the Ziying battleship had roared and hit the spiritual shuttle hard. Boom! The terrible explosion raged like a landslide and a tsunami, sweeping and shaking in the narrow carriage as if it was the end of the world. Lin soon felt pain all over his body, and his eardrums were about to be torn apart as if they were pricked by needles. His vision became dizzy and dim, and the earth shook. His body was swept away by a terrible tearing force and flew out uncontrollably. He couldn't see anything. He couldn't feel anything, but the burning pains spread all over his body like a tide. But basically, Lin Sun still relied on his instinct to protect the little girl Luo in his arms. It seemed that many years had passed, but it also seemed that it was just a moment. Lin Sun suddenly opened his eyes with unknown strength. In an instant, he saw that he was only more than 30 meters away from the ground. Almost subconsciously, Lin Sun gritted his teeth and made a beast-like roar. His body turned over in the air fiercely. Bang! The next moment, Lin Sun hit a piece of soft grass with his back to the ground, making a big pit and splashing mud. But before this, Lin Sun successfully transferred all the falling force of the little girl Luo to himself with the skill of grafting. Luo was shook by his wrist and rolled into the grass not far away. The falling force was twice as much as before, which almost broke all the bones of Lin Sun. As soon as he fell to the ground, he couldn't help coughing up blood. His face became extremely pale, and he couldn't help groaning in pain. Pain. Chapter 300. Wheeze, wheeze. Lin Sun was gasping for breath. His face was pale, and his eyes were full of ferocity like that of a beast. It was an instinctive desire to survive, and a strong will that could only be honed after a long time of tempering. After about 15 minutes, Lin Sun felt that his mind was slightly sober, and his head was no longer as dizzy as before. This was the bottom of a canyon, with mountains standing like halberds on both sides. Looking around, there was no danger for the time being. Without hesitation, Lin Sun began to check his injuries despite the severe pain all over his body. 3 ribs on the left side of his chest were broken, the joint of the shoulder blade of his right arm was dislocated, and his back was badly mutilated due to the impact of the explosion. Fortunately, although these injuries were serious, they were not fatal. In the bloodthirsty camp, injuries like this could only be regarded as child's play, which was not enough to affect Lin Sun's action at all. The only thing that made him frown was that he had suffered a lot of internal injuries. His qi and blood were shaken, and his 5 internal organs were damaged, which would greatly affect his combat effectiveness. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun regained his calmness and concentration. Like a wounded lone wolf, he began to clean and bandage the wounds. In the bloodthirsty camp, there were specially equipped field doctors to help the trainees heal. Lin Sun had been a good doctor for a long time, and his actions were skillful and precise. It didn't take long for Lin Sun to finish bandaging his wounds. He gritted his teeth, stood up, and stretched his body a little. In an instant, he judged that he could only exert 40% of his peak combat effectiveness in his current physical condition. The most urgent thing was to find a safe place to heal his internal injuries in time. Glancing around, Lin Sun found the little girl Luo in the grass not far away. The little girl was not injured, but fell into a coma because of the shock. This made Lin Sun feel at ease, but at the same time, an uncontrollable anger burned in his heart, which stimulated every inch of his body to explode. He didn't expect that the enemy was so cruel that they even sent a Ziying battleship to destroy a spiritual shuttle full of passengers in one fell swoop. Who could imagine that a battleship from the Empire slaughtered a group of people who originally belonged to the Empire? Perhaps, in their eyes, those ordinary people were insignificant even if they died? He still remembered that he was still chatting with the little girl in the spiritual shuttle a moment ago, and those passengers were still alive. The next moment they lost their lives because of an explosion. Lin Sun felt as if his heart was cut by a knife. This was the first time that so many innocent people lost their lives because of Lin Sun. Unspeakable feelings of self-blame and anger tortured Lin's mind like whips, making him hate the enemy who caused all this to the bone. "Mother, I'm afraid." In his arms, the little girl, Luo, who was unconscious, let out an unconscious murmur. Her young face, which was covered in dust, was filled with nervousness and helplessness. This made Lin feel bitter and remorseful. The plainly dressed woman once gave him a set of clothes and showed warmth and kindness to a stranger, but she had suffered because of him. Suddenly, Lin Sun took a deep breath and dared not to think any more. If he kept thinking, he was afraid that he would not be able to control himself. "I, Lin Sun, will avenge you." Lin Sun pursed his lips tightly, and his black eyes became indifferent and cold. He carried Luo on his back, fixed her with a strip of cloth torn from his clothes, and then turned and walked away. In an old mansion in the Forbidden City. When the news of the destruction of the spiritual shuttle came at the first time, all the people in the room cheered and beamed with joy. "I've said that we only need to mobilize a Zing battleship to blast the target into pieces. Ha ha ha, I'd like to know what kind of expression Su Qianjing, the tactical master, will have when he hears the news. It must be interesting." "What do you mean by effortless?" "That's it. We don't need to send a soldier at all. We can directly send a Zing battleship to kill the target. Everything will be solved. Su Qianjing has to collect intelligence and make a careful layout. It's ridiculous." When people talked excitedly, they inevitably made sarcastic remarks to Su Qianjing, just like a winner. "Princess Mei, now that the target has been eliminated, shall we hold a celebration banquet?" someone suddenly asked. "Wait a minute." Qi Tsangmei thought for a moment and said, "At present, it's not confirmed whether the target is dead or alive. After confirming, I will ask the clan to hold a celebration for you." Everyone immediately smiled happily. It was just a result. They believed that it would be clear soon. Subconsciously, they had already determined that the target could not survive. After all, it was a brand new Zing battleship. Even Sea Spirit Realm martial artists had to avoid it, let alone a teenager of Human Gang Realm. The conversation ended here. From beginning to end, no one mentioned many innocent lives destroyed with the spiritual shuttle. This attitude of disregard was enough to prove that in their eyes, the lives of those passengers were not worth mentioning at all. Out of the canyon, there was a rocky beach with high and low peak. It was evening, and a setting sun hung in the far sky, sprinkling blood red. When Lin Sun arrived here, he immediately stopped. He saw some scattered wreckage of the spiritual shuttle piled up on the rocky beach in the distance. Lin Sun suddenly felt a little heavy. Zing battleship was designed by him. No one knew better than him how terrible the power of the spiritual cannons arranged on the battleship was. Even the overmatch of Sea Spirit Realm couldn't resist the full blow of the spiritual cannons at all. The defensive power of the previous spiritual shuttle was as vulnerable as a piece of paper under the bombardment of such a blow. This also meant that when the explosion occurred, there was almost no possibility for the passengers on the spiritual shuttle to escape. At that time, if Lin Sun hadn't broken the wall of the spiritual shuttle and rushed out of the carriage with Luo in his arms, he would have been killed on the spot. At this moment, looking at the cold wreckage of the spiritual shuttle, Lin Sun felt like a stone was stuck in his heart when he thought that even the battleship that killed those passengers was designed by himself. Under the setting sun, Lin Sun was silent. His handsome face was pale and almost transparent, but there seemed to be a pair of torches burning in his eyes. After a long time, Lin Sun's figure flashed quietly and hid in the shadow of a rock crevice on one side. In his hand, there was a divine crossbow shining with cold light. "Hurry up! There is a wreckage of the spiritual shuttle here. Start searching in all directions. No matter who is alive, kill them without mercy. The most important thing is to find the target, alive or dead." Just as Lin Sun hid, in a place far away from the rocky beach, many figures rushed here quickly. There were 50 or 60 people, led by a black-clothed man with thick hair and scars on his face. As soon as they appeared, they started a comprehensive search in the rocky beach. In the shadow, Lin Sun's eyes were cold and indifferent. He watched all this quietly. No one knew that the hatred and killing intent in his heart were boiling. The spiritual shuttle has been destroyed. How can there be any survivors? It's a waste of time and energy to search again. Those practitioners seemed very relaxed, grumbling as they searched. Yes, when we searched in other areas, we didn't find any survivors at all except some broken corpses and flesh. How can the target survive this time? Don't talk nonsense. Search quickly. This is the order from above. Who dares to disobey? Humph! I can guarantee that the target must have been killed. If he is still alive, I will commit suicide immediately. During the conversation, a practitioner snorted disdainfully, causing a burst of noise. Suddenly, the practitioner was stunned. Puff! At this moment, his throat suddenly burst open, and blood splashed. At the same time, his body was grabbed by a hand and dragged into the shadow of a nearby crack. Yang Lao-san, why don't you speak? Did you commit suicide by cutting your throat? Not far away, a practitioner seemed to notice something and walked over with an iron spear in his hand. Immediately, his pupils shrank. He saw the body of Yang Lao-san, lying in the shadow of the rock. No, his face suddenly changed. When he wanted to shout, he felt a pain in his head. His eyes suddenly went black and he lost all consciousness. Although the strange movement here ended silently, it still aroused the vigilance of many practitioners. They narrowed their eyes and cautiously approached this side. In their hands there were all divine crossbows. Whoosh! Suddenly, a black shadow rushed out, causing them to almost subconsciously pull the trigger. Accompanied by a rapid and sharp whistling sound, the black shadow was instantly penetrated into a sieve. But to those practitioners' surprise, the black shadow was one of their companions. Oh no! Their faces suddenly changed, and they realized that they had been fooled. But before they had time to react, they heard a familiar sharp whistling sound, and a waterfall-like arrow rain suddenly bloomed in their field of vision. Puff, 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 flowers of blood burst from those practitioners' throats, chests, heads and other vital places, like a series of firecrackers. The scarlet and hot blood splashed, which was sad and chilling. In an instant, 7 practitioners who approached had all been killed on the spot. Oh no! Enemy attack! At this moment, the practitioners who were originally distributed in different areas of the rocky beach all reacted, shouted in shock and anger, and rushed here. Although they reacted quickly, Lin Sun was faster than them. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure was like a flash of lightning. With a leap, he had rushed to dozens of meters away. With a flash of the flowing lightsaber in his hand, a practitioner's neck was immediately cut off and he fell to the ground. At this time, Lin Sun had already taken advantage of the situation to rush forward. His Taoist light swept over like a waterfall, and the enemy was caught off guard and killed 4 people in succession. Chapter 301. When Lin Sun appeared and was recognized by those practitioners, almost no one dared to believe that all this was true. Who could imagine that a human gang realm teenager could survive the bombardment of Ziying battleship? It was incredible! But soon, no one dared to think more, because Lin Sun had launched an attack. He was alone with a little girl on his back, but when he moved, he was like a king on the battlefield. His momentum swept like a storm and was unstoppable. Every single slash would reap a life, and that simple, precise, and swift method of slaughter naturally possessed a deterring force that shook the hearts of all. At this moment, Lin Sun really had no scruples. He needed to vent his anger. Hatred and self-blame accumulated in his heart like an erupting volcano. He couldn't contain it and didn't want to contain it at all. Kill. With flowing lightsaber in his hand, Lin Sun's momentum was boiling like a landslide and tsunami. He was like a storm sweeping the world, rampaging and unstoppable. "Hurry up! Let's stop him together!" the leading man with a knife scar roared. Immediately, many practitioners rushed over, trying to encircle and kill Lin Sun with the absolute advantage of numbers. Rumble! But before they could get close, Lin Sun's blade swept through the void like a galaxy and broke the encirclement of the enemies. 7 or 8 practitioners screamed and were shaken away. They were seriously injured and on the verge of death, losing their combat effectiveness. Many enemies were shocked and exclaimed. They couldn't believe all this. It was terrible. There were many Heaven Gang realm practitioners among them. But at this moment, they couldn't stop Lin Sun at all. Kill! As Lin Sun rushed forward, the rocky beach was full of blood, broken limbs, and shrill screams. The bloody and tragic scenes seemed to turn this place into a purgatory. Crack! A practitioner attacked from behind. A spear, like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue, was wrapped in black luster. It was aimed at Luoluo, the little girl on Lin Sun's back. Bang! But Lin Sun seemed to have eyes behind his back. Without looking back, he suddenly took out a wooden crossbow of thorns and shot it at the attacker. With a puff, the sneak attacker was caught off guard. An arrow pierced through his left eye, piercing through his entire head. He let out a blood-curdling scream and fell to the ground. For a while, this terrible scene scared all the practitioners away from Lin Sun, making Lin Sun's surroundings empty all of a sudden. "Idiot! Why aren't you releasing the crossbow bolts at this time?" The leader of the group, the scarred man, roared. Suddenly, those practitioners seemed to wake up from a dream. They took out their short crossbows and aimed at Lin from different directions. However, before they took any action, Lin Sun had already taken out a short crossbow in his left hand. It wasn't the divine crossbow, nor was it the thorny wood crossbow. It wasn't even any of the short crossbows that could be found on the market. The crossbow looked very ordinary. It was pitch black and even looked a little inconspicuous. But when Lin Sun pulled the trigger, a strange sound like the low hum of a flute suddenly sounded in this world. Woo! In an instant, silver starlight blooming like fireworks suddenly appeared in the vision of all the enemies, which was extremely gorgeous and beautiful. An extremely strong sense of danger surged in everyone's heart. Their souls were trembling with fear and almost collapsed. Astonishingly, it was a dreamlike rain of silver arrows. They were gorgeous like fireworks, mysterious like starlight, yet they were like numerous flowers of condensed snow and frost, and they revealed a soul-stirring beauty as they spread out in space. That kind of beauty seemed to make the world pale and souls sink. Puff, puff, puff. The cultivators did not even have the time to struggle before they were pierced by the silver arrows. Before they died, their expressions still carried a trace of confusion and absent-mindedness, as if they could not imagine that such a beautiful and terrifying short crossbow existed in this world. When the dazzling starlight disappeared, there were more than 10 corpses on the ground. Blood was still gurgling out, but they had died in an instant. This was the meteor's crossbow. In the bloodthirsty camp, Lin Sun refined a great killing weapon by himself, which amazed young Ku, young man, and Shu Sanchi. It also made old Mo, a spiritual tattoo master, fascinated and amazed again and again. Like the awakening globe, the meteor's crossbow was also one of the gadgets Lin Sun refined before he left Mist City. Unfortunately, the spiritual materials needed for Meteor's crossbow were too precious. With Lin Sun's financial resources at that time, he could only refine one at most. Although the power of the Meteor's crossbow was extremely great, it could not be used for the second time after being used once. This might be the biggest defect of the Meteor's crossbow. With Lin Sun's current attainments in spiritual tattoos, he couldn't solve this defect perfectly. In an instant, the starlight firework-like arrow rain flashed, and more than 10 practitioners were killed on the spot. This terrifying scene caused the souls of some of the cultivators that had escaped this calamity to leave their bodies, and they were practically terrified out of their wits. Even the scar-faced man felt cold in his hands and feet, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He felt an unprecedented great horror. Counting carefully, from the beginning of this killing to the present, more than 30 of their companions had died one after another. But their opponents were still unscathed. Especially after witnessing the power of the meteor crossbow, these already frightened practitioners felt despair, and their fighting spirit collapsed. Therefore, when Lin Sun started killing again, the remaining more than 20 practitioners couldn't help but scream in horror and flee. They had been frightened by Lin Sun's unparalleled fighting strength, and they had seen the terrible lethality of the meteor's crossbow. How could they dare to resist stubbornly? Run! At this moment, in their hearts, Lin Sun was just like a devil who killed without blinking, which made them feel unprecedented despair. Lin Sun's eyes were as cold as lightning. He didn't stop but directly chased after them. However, after only running for dozens of meters, he suddenly let out a muffled groan, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. It seemed that he didn't encounter any danger in the previous killing, but because he ran his cultivation forcefully, the internal injuries he had suffered before were affected, which made his meridians and viscera feel like they were on fire. It was not easy for him. But even so, Lin Sun didn't stop there. The anger and killing intent in his heart made him unable to tolerate the enemy escaping under his eyes. Bang! While chasing, Lin Sun took out a holy crossbow and pulled the trigger at the right time. With a bang, a practitioner hundreds of meters away was penetrated and fell to the ground with a thud. Bang! 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 The sharp whistling sound of the spiritual crossbow reverberated between heaven and earth. In the following time, Lin Sun, like an experienced and steady hunter, constantly chased after the fleeing prey. In the previous days, he had seized a large number of crossbows. He had planned to exchange them for money, but at this moment, Lin Sun didn't care too much and used them all to fight against the enemy. Although the accuracy of the crossbow would be greatly reduced in the pursuit, more than 10 practitioners were still killed on the spot under Lin Sun's frequent and intensive attack. Unconsciously, Lin Sun had chased to an open hilly area. When he killed another practitioner, his pupils suddenly shrank. He saw a Ziying battleship parked there thousands of meters away. Without hesitation, Lin Sun directly gave up the chase and turned away. His speed was obviously faster than before. Boom! With a strong thunderous roar, the Ziying battleship rose into the air, casting a huge shadow on the ground. At this time, Lin Sun had flashed into a mountain range, and quickly climbed to the top of a mountain hundreds of meters high with his hands and feet. Lin Sun took a deep breath, took out the insignificant bow, squatted on the ground, and looked at the void in the distance with his black eyes. His eyes became as sharp as an eagle's. He hooked his fingertips and pulled the blood-red bowstring, keeping absolute calm and concentration in his sea of consciousness. In an instant, his field of vision changed. The Ziying battleship, which had risen into the air, was clearly reflected in Lin Sun's eyes. Every inch of the battleship seemed to be magnified several times. It was approaching from the void at full speed. On a turret in the center of the battleship, there was a bright light, and countless dense spiritual tattoos were flowing as if they were alive. This was the spiritual cannon. The spiritual cannon arranged in the Ziying battleship had a murderous name, City-Breaking Spiritual Cannon. Its power was so strong that it could easily kill a Sea Spirit Realm practitioner. At this time, the Ziying battleship was obviously going to operate the City-Breaking Spiritual Cannon to give Lin Sun a devastating blow. Lin Sun didn't move. He was on the top of the mountain, and he didn't care about the danger of exposing his trace. He kept the action of drawing the bow and aiming at the target. His mind was absolutely calm and focused. Almost in the blink of an eye, the Ziying battleship had appeared in the void hundreds of meters away, locking the muzzle on the mountain where Lin Sun was. Whoosh! At this time, Lin Sun suddenly loosened his fingertips, and an almost invisible spiritual arrow shot out silently. Boom! Almost at the same time, the city-breaking spiritual cannon, which had been stored for a long time, was suddenly launched in a dazzling light. However, the moment the cannon fire that could kill a sea spirit realm cultivator rushed out of the battery, it was accurately hit by a silent void spirit arrow. In an instant, a terrible explosion suddenly spread from the turret like a volcanic eruption. It tore up the turret in an instant and swept over the Ziying battleship. Looking from afar, one could see thousands of feet of fire rising to the sky. The Ziying battleship shook violently in the void, making a roar and teetering. An arrow almost destroyed a brand new Ziying battleship. If other practitioners of the Empire saw this scene, they would be shocked. They would not believe that a human gang realm teenager could have the ability to do this. It was too shocking. But for Lin Sun, this was not an extremely crazy and absurd move, because the Ziying battleship was originally designed by him. In other people's eyes, all the signs of the city-breaching spiritual cannon might be just a dazzling light, but in Lin Sun's eyes, he could accurately predict the time when the city-breaching spiritual cannon would be fired. As long as he took advantage of this, with the power of the insignificant bow, and firmly grasped this fleeting opportunity, it was enough to achieve this step. Chapter 302. The Ziying battleship was on the verge of collapse. But in the end, it didn't fall to the ground and be destroyed. Instead, it turned around like a drunken brute, and it swayed as it flashed towards the distant space, quickly vanishing from sight. Lin Sun sighed in his heart and put away the insignificant bow. He could only blame himself for designing the Ziying battleship too powerful. As long as the spiritual furnace was not fatally damaged, there would be no possibility of falling and damage. Even with Lin Sun's current means, he couldn't find any chance to attack the spiritual furnace of the Ziying battleship. But then again, if the Ziying battleship was destroyed so easily, it would show that Lin Sun's design was very poor. It was a small, excellent battleship designed by himself, but now it was used to deal with him. It was ridiculous to think about it. Mom! Mom! Suddenly, the vague voice of the little girl Luoluo came from behind, which made Lin Sun wake up suddenly. He glanced around and immediately chose a path to go down the mountain. The enemy had been temporarily repelled. The next thing was to seize the time to heal his injuries. As for the little girl Luoluo, Lin Sun would not leave her alone. The Forbidden City. There was a cheerful conversation in the old mansion. Well, when this task is over, I'm going to the Smiles of Beauties to get drunk. There are many girls waiting for me there. Haha. What's so fun about the girls in the brothel? I asked someone to collect a batch of voodoo barbarian girls from the slave market a while ago. I think they have been domesticated as slaves now. At that time, I must have a good taste of these alien girls. You only know how to have fun. I'm different from you. My clan has arranged a superior secret realm for me to practice. When this task is over, I will practice in seclusion to prepare for breaking through to Sea Spirit Realm. Those young people were talking about their plans after the task was over. They were talking with great enthusiasm, and there was no lack of tit-for-tat in their words. This was the style of most of the rich and powerful children. Whether it was eating, drinking, playing, cultivating, or doing things, they had to compete with each other to distinguish who was better. Everyone, no matter what you are going to do, don't forget that there is a celebration party waiting for you. If you don't come, don't blame me for turning hostile. Chi Tsangmei seemed to be in a good mood at the moment. It was rare for her to take the initiative to make a joke, which made others laugh and echo. Bang! At this moment, the door was pushed open. A guard rushed in and shouted, "Not good! News from the front line says the target is still alive." What? In an instant, the originally cheerful and harmonious atmosphere in the room vanished, and it became deathly silent and oppressive. The assistants looked at each other with astounded expressions, and they seemed to not dare believe their ears. Under the bombardment of Ziying battleship, that guy actually survived? How the F***ck is this possible? What's going on? Chi Sangmei looked cold, and her clear eyes were as sharp as a knife. The guard shuddered and swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He was about to say something. At this time, another guard rushed in with a frightened look. He almost bumped into Chi Sangmei. "Why are you panicking? What a scandal!" Chi Sangmei snapped. The guard who had just run in cried out with a sad face, "Miss, it's bad. The Ziying battleship transferred to the Maple Mount was also seriously damaged and almost destroyed." Everyone was stunned as if struck by lightning. Even the Ziying battleship was hit hard? How could this be possible? At this time, they didn't have a trace of the cool appearance when they talked about romance just now. They were all stunned. Is there any record? Chi Sangmei took a deep breath, pressed down the uneasiness and doubt in her heart, and asked with a frown. The guard hurriedly took out a wind shadow hawk and pinched its throat with his fingers. With a "pu" sound, it spat out a pearl that was shrouded in glittering light. The bead rotated in the air and reflected a light curtain. Pictures flashed on it. It was the bloody picture of Lin Sun carrying the little girl on his back and killing a group of practitioners alone. Lin Sun didn't die. The assistants' faces became extremely gloomy. Even Chi Sangmei's expression was gloomy. It should have been a sure thing to send out Ziying battleship this time, but who could expect that the target survived miraculously? Before long, the scene of the explosion of Ziying battleship appeared on the light curtain. Even looking at the light curtain, those assistants were shocked. Their expressions changed and their eyes widened in disbelief. That was Ziying battleship. Which human gang realm practitioner could hit it hard? The light curtain didn't show how Lin Sun did it, but Chi Sangmei and others had confirmed that the news that Ziying battleship was hit hard was a fact. When the light screen disappeared, the atmosphere in the room was deathly silent, so oppressive that it made it hard for people to breathe. Bombed a spiritual shuttle, but failed to kill the target. Instead, the target took the opportunity to hit Ziying battleship hard. All this seems so absurd and incredible. Yet, all of this had really happened. Was the target really an unkillable monster? Damn it, someone couldn't help cursing. Why is it like this? That guy is not a sea spirit realm practitioner. How can he be so abnormal? Could it be that someone secretly helped him? Someone doubted. As soon as the voice came out, it was firmly opposed by Chi Sangmei. It's impossible. As for the reason, she didn't explain. But what the hell is going on? Many people looked gloomy. Now is not the time to think about it. We should think about what we should do in the next action. Chi Sangmei said coldly. Up to now, we have lost nearly 200 elite practitioners and a Ziying battleship has been hit hard. This kind of loss may not be serious, but the combat power shown by the target is strong enough for us to pay unprecedented attention to it. Princess Mei, what do you think we should do? Those assistants all looked at Chi Sangmei. Chi Sangmei thought for a long time, but the more she thought about it, the more upset she was. Inexplicably, she thought of Su Qianjing again. She couldn't help regretting that she should not let Su Qianjing leave so easily. However, Chi Sangmei didn't feel guilty about driving Su Qianjing away. She knew very well that people like Su Qianjing helped her this time to repay the favor. Therefore, even if she let him stay, she couldn't control him. By the way, did Su Qianjing make any arrangement and preparation for the target crossing the Maple Mount? Suddenly, Chi Sangmei thought of something and asked. Those assistants immediately looked at each other with a little uneasiness. They had been dissatisfied with Su Qianjing for a long time. They only satirized and sarcastic Su Qianjing and didn't even think about asking what Su Qianjing's plan and arrangement was. Seeing this, Chi Sangmei couldn't help being a little sullen. Finally, she restrained herself and said, "From now on, you help me collect intelligence and make tactics. Finally, I will issue orders and direct the action." After a pause, she calmed down and said indifferently, No one is allowed to leave here without authorization unless the target is dead. All the people were trembling in their hearts and kept silent. In a remote and cramped cave in the Maple Mount, the bonfire was about to burn out, and there was still a trace of barbecue smell in the air. Lin Sun sat cross-legged on one side, looking at the little girl Luoluo, who was full and sleeping on a soft animal skin. He breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. As soon as the little girl woke up, she cried to find her mother. Lin Sun tried his best to stabilize the little girl's mood. He accompanied her to have a roasted game and coaxed her to sleep. Luoluo's mother had little possibility of survival, which made Lin Sun feel guilty and self-reproach. He also cherished Luoluo more for fear that he could not take good care of her. But when he thought of the many dangers he would face along the way, Lin Sun had a headache and didn't know how to settle Luoluo down. He didn't want this little girl, who was only 3 or 4 years old, to take risks with him. After thinking about it, Lin Sun couldn't think of a way to make the best of both worlds. He finally shook his head and let it go for the time being. After extinguishing the bonfire, Lin Sun started the waking globe, placed it at the entrance of the cave, and set up a spiritual formation to hide the breath. Then he was completely relieved and began to sit cross-legged on the ground to heal his injuries. He had a lot of elixirs needed for healing. If he took the time to recover, he could recover in about 5 or 6 days. In this way, Lin Sun temporarily stayed in the Maple Mount to recuperate. In addition to healing, he took care of Luoluo every day. A child of 3 or 4 years old was in need of company most. She suffered a disaster and lost her mother, so she was quite emotionally fragile. In order not to let Luoluo be too sad, Lin Sun simply took out Chirps, who was sleeping in his palm, and let it play with Luoluo. Unexpectedly, this move had a miraculous effect. As soon as Luoluo saw Chirps, which was soft and round like a ball and looked extremely cute and silly, Luoluo's eyes suddenly lit up and she cheered. Chirps was originally a heartless creature. After being admonished by Lin Sun, it had a lot of fun with Luoluo. Seeing this, Lin Sun was very happy. With Chirps taking care of Luoluo, he could also concentrate on healing. After 7 days, Lin Sun's injuries were completely recovered. He didn't stay any longer and left with Luoluo. Luoluo, promise me one thing. Go ahead, brother. If you meet bad guys on the road in the future, remember to close your eyes so that you won't be scared by bad guys. Okay. I'll listen to you. Luoluo is so good. I'll buy you a lot of toys in the future. I don't want to. I just want Chirps to accompany me. Okay. On the rugged and steep mountain road of the Maple Mount, Lin Sun strode forward with Luoluo on his back. Along the way, when chatting with Luoluo, Lin Sun inadvertently thought of Xiaji. How was this little girl now? Chapter 303. Green Willow Town was built adjacent to the Maple Mount. Most of the residents in the town made a living by collecting herbs and hunting. They were not poor, but they were not rich either. Like most cities and towns in the empire, Green Willow Town was small, but it was densely populated and had convenient transportation. There were all kinds of restaurants, inns, and businesses. It was noon. The Maple Tower, the most famous restaurant in the town, was already very lively. Here, one could see young practitioners wandering in Jianghu, peddlers and pawns who were busy all year round, and rich young masters and ladies who sneaked out to eat, drink and have fun. All kinds of people could be seen here. The restaurant had always been a special place, and it was always bustling with noise and excitement. People from all walks of life would gather in the same place, drinking and chatting. They talked about everything from the north to the south, from the great events of the imperial court to the small matters of the streets and alleys of the city. Everything became the most stimulating topics when they drank. Today's Maple Tower was as lively as ever, but the atmosphere on the second floor of the restaurant was a little quiet. It was not very deserted here. On the contrary, most of the tables were already full of people. But these people were all drinking in silence and didn't talk much, which made the atmosphere a little dull. "What's the signature dish?" "Sir, we have a lot of signature dishes. Things that fly in the sky, things that run on the ground, and things that swim in the water, we have them all here, such as braised purple-tailed fish, stir-fried sparrow tongue, mountain delicacies stew." "Then give me one." "Where's the wine?" "Sir, the steamed maple wine of our maple tower is the best. Many guests here say it's good after drinking it." "Let's try a pot first." "Okay, please go upstairs and wait a moment." With a conversation, a handsome figure walked up to the second floor of the restaurant. He wore a plain moon-white robe, and his long black hair was tied behind his head with a straw rope at will, revealing a handsome face with sharp edges. Behind him, there was a basket on his back, in which sat a little girl of 3 or 4 years old. She was lying on her stomach in front of the basket, looking around curiously with her big black eyes. This man was Lin Sun. He was wearing the clothes given by the little girl Luolua's mother. Walking up to the second floor, he swept his gaze over the diners eating around him. His eyes narrowed imperceptibly and he smiled. He found a seat by the window and sat down. He carried Luoluo out of the basket and placed her on the seat beside him. "Brother, I want to play with Chiochio." Luoluo raised her little face and looked at Lin eagerly. Lin Sun agreed readily. He took Chirps out of thin air, threw it directly on the table, and played with Luoluo. The eyes of many nearby customers couldn't help but narrow slightly when they witnessed this scene, and then they withdrew their gazes and didn't continue watching. Lin Sun didn't seem to notice all this. He looked at Luoluo playing with Chirps with a smile. Suddenly, his attention was attracted by the noisy conversation on the first floor of the restaurant. "Damn it, the spiritual shuttle fell. I heard that there were hundreds of people on it, including many practitioners. I also heard the news a few days ago. It was said that a spiritual shuttle was crossing the Maple Mount when it was attacked by a fierce bird in the sky. Finally, the shuttle was destroyed and the passengers died. All dead. Of course. Even if they didn't die, how could they survive after falling into the Maple Mount where fierce beasts raged? Alas, this is called an undeserved disaster." Hearing this, Lin Sun suddenly felt a sense of unspeakable depression in his heart. What was an undeserved disaster? What was an attack by a fierce bird? This was clearly a premeditated massacre. Obviously, the news had been completely blocked and suppressed by the enemy, and then they used an absurd reason of a fierce bird attack to deceive the world. Lin Sun had long thought that since the enemy dared to do this, they must have something to fear, but he still underestimated the shamelessness of the enemy. This might be the means by which those self-proclaimed big shots deceived the world. They could cover up all the truth with a casual excuse. Lin Sun had no doubt that even if he told the truth at this time, no one would believe him. After all, who would believe that the battleship from the Empire would kill the people belonging to the Empire? Just as Lin Sun's mood fluctuated, a burst of proud laughter suddenly sounded. "Jiao, I'm not modest to say that in this green willow town, if my Rue family dares to claim to be the second, no clan dares to claim to be the first. Jiao, if you follow me, you will become the most eye-catching woman in Green Willow Town. Brother Rui Qing, I don't want others' attention, as long as you can treat me well." A sweet woman's voice also sounded. Lin Sun was stunned. Was there anyone in the world who praised him like this? What made Lin Sun feel most strange was that the woman's voice was coquettish, which sounded very exaggerated. Immediately, at the entrance of the stairs, a child in a brocade robe came up, followed by a beautiful woman with white skin. They went up to the second floor and found a seat to sit down. The child Rui Qing proudly boasted about how great his family was from time to time, and the woman Jiao flattered him with all her heart. Lin Sun couldn't help shaking his head and no longer paid attention to these things. At this time, the wine and dishes were also served. Lin Sun and Luoluo immediately concentrated on eating. Chirps was lying lazily on one side, yawning and looking like it was about to fall asleep. It didn't like these dishes, and its favorite food was spiritual crystals. Hey, what a lovely little guy. Brother Ruiqing, what kind of spirit beast is that? I want to pinch its round belly. Suddenly, Jiao on a nearby table pointed to Chirps and screamed like a crazy girl. Ha ha, Jiao, since you like it, I'll help you get it. Ruiqing next to him laughed, got up and came over. He squinted at Lin Sun and said, Dude, is this spirit beast yours? Well, I'll give you 100 imperial silver coins, and you sell this little thing to me. As he said, he took out a money bag and slammed it on the table. Without asking whether Lin Sun agreed, he raised his hand to grab Chirp. Crack! A pair of chopsticks fell down and accurately hit Ruiqing's wrist joint. Ruiqing suddenly retracted his arm like an electric shock and gasped in pain. Jiao let out a scream, got up and ran over and asked anxiously, Brother Ruiqing, are you okay? Ruiqing felt embarrassed that he suffered a big loss in front of his woman. He sneered. I'm fine, but this boy will be in trouble today. Damn it, I have never suffered such a loss in Green Willow Town. As he said, he slapped Lin Sun in the face. Simple, direct and irritable, this was Ruiqing. Lin Sun wondered whether this guy was too arrogant or stupid. Crack! Lin Sun sat there without moving, but the chopsticks in his hand once again accurately stabbed Ruiqing's palm joint, which made Ruiqing scream in pain, and his face twitched. Damn it, you're courting death. How dare you hit me? You're finished. Don't think about leaving Green Willow Town alive today. Ruiqing roared. After being taught twice in a row, Ruiqing not only didn't learn the lesson, but also became ruthless. Lin Sun completely realized that he met an arrogant and ignorant playboy this time. He was not only stupid, but also a fool with no vision. Suddenly, Lin Sun noticed something. He glanced around inadvertently and frowned. Without hesitation, he stood up and said with a smile, My friend, how about I send you to get help? Ruiqing, who was roaring spontaneously, was stunned. What the fuck do you mean? Lin Sun grabbed Ruiqing's lapel and threw him out of the window next to him. There was a muffled sound in the street outside, and Ruiqing's scream came out, Bastard, wait for me. Jiao was so scared that her face turned pale and she screamed, You know who Ruiqing is? He is the third young master of Rui family, the first force in Green Willow Town. If you offend him, you won't. Before she finished, she was also grabbed by Lin Sun and thrown out of the window. After doing all this, Lin Sun shook his head. What a pair of weirdos. Then, he bowed his head and asked Luoluo, Are you full? Luoluo nodded obediently. She held Chirps in her arms, as if she was afraid that Chirps would be taken away. Then let's go. Lin Sun picked up Luoluo, put her in the basket, and then carried her on his back. Brother, are those two bad guys just now? Luoluo asked. Lin Sun said casually, They are not bad. At best, they are a pair of idiots. Speaking of this, Lin Sun glanced at the diners who were eating around, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. But, Luoluo, close your eyes first. The real bad guys will appear later. Luoluo was stunned, but she still obediently covered her eyes, squatted in the basket and said, Brother, don't worry. I won't look. Lin Sun nodded, and his black eyes suddenly became indifferent. He glanced at the diners who were eating on the second floor and said with a smile, Everyone, it's time to go. What do you think? Clang. As he said, the flowing light saber suddenly appeared in his hand. Lin Sun's figure jumped up, and the blade swept a terrible fierce spirit, and cut 3 diners at the nearest table. Almost at the same time, the 3 diners rushed up. Obviously, they had been ready for Lin Sun's attack. When Lin Sun attacked, they had subconsciously launched a counterattack. We've been seen through. Let's do it together. With a loud shout, the diners who had been sitting around the second floor of the restaurant all stood up at this moment. They looked cold and murderous, holding various spiritual weapons in their hands, and attacked fiercely. In an instant, the original calm atmosphere was broken. This place seemed to have turned into a battlefield, with sabers and swords everywhere, and the murderous spirit raged like a storm. The noise was so big that the diners who were eating on the first floor of the restaurant were all shocked. They screamed in horror and ran out. The whole Maple Tower was caught in a bloody fight. The strong wind raged, the walls collapsed, and the sound of tables, chairs, cups and dishes was shattered. Even the pedestrians on the nearby streets were alarmed and avoided the area, fearing that they would be affected. No one noticed that many figures were quietly lurking on the top of many houses, shops and other buildings around the Maple Tower. Chapter 304. Ma Ming hid in the shadow of a roof and waited quietly. As the person in charge of this action, Ma Ming had the ability to convince people. He had the cultivation of Heaven Gang realm and mastered a superb archery skill, which was enough to kill the enemy from 3 kilometers away. The most important thing was that he had rich experience and fighting wisdom honed by many years of fighting. This was the fundamental reason why he became the person in charge of this action. At this time, Ma Ming was holding a simple and slender spiritual bow in his hand. This bow was called cut throat, which meant to cut the throat with one arrow. In the Maple Tower 1360 meters away, a bloody battle was taking place. The tower was shaking and the walls collapsed. It was about to be completely destroyed. It could be imagined how fierce the battle was. However, Ma Ming analyzed the news obtained these days. It was absolutely impossible for the target who could survive the bombardment of Ziying battleship to be killed so easily. In other words, Ma Ming didn't expect his companions in the restaurant to kill the target. According to his arrangements, the 27 companions who were scattered around the restaurant were supposed to keep the target occupied. As long as the target could be delayed, Ma Ming could take this opportunity to deploy detailed forces to completely block the retreat of the target and make the target a turtle in a jar. Of course, the 27 companions were very likely to be sacrificed like cannon fodder, but Ma Ming didn't care. In his opinion, if he wanted to kill such a ruthless, abnormal and difficult target, how could he not pay some price? The current situation proved that Ma Ming's deployment was not wrong. After the battle broke out in the restaurant, he had arranged people to hide in different directions around the restaurant and block all the areas. Now, he was waiting for the target to appear. Of course, if the target died in the battle in the restaurant, it was undoubtedly the best, but Ma Ming didn't have any expectation for this. After 10 minutes, in the end, the Sunset Glow restaurant that was on the verge of collapse couldn't withstand the blow, and it collapsed with a bang and transformed into ruins. Ma Ming's eyes suddenly narrowed, and he made a gesture in the void, telling a group of practitioners who were ambushing nearby to be ready. As long as the target appeared, they would welcome an overwhelming destructive blow. The means of attack was extremely simple and crude, which was to use short crossbows and spiritual bows to cover the area where the target appeared in all directions. Ma Ming was confident that under such a blow, not to mention the target, even a fly would be killed in an instant. The atmosphere became tense and murderous. There wasn't a single pedestrian on the streets in this area, and it was empty and cold. However, as time passed, the ruins of the restaurant remained quiet. The target's figure did not appear at all. Of course, none of the 27 companions who were fighting the target appeared. It was terrifyingly quiet. Ma Ming suddenly felt a little uneasy. In his judgment, when the restaurant was destroyed, the target would inevitably choose to rush out in order to avoid it. But the silence in front of him exceeded Ma Ming's expectation. Could it be that the target had perished together with his companions? As soon as this thought flashed through Ma Ming's mind, a sharp whistling sound exploded in Ma Ming's ears, which made his pupils shrink. This was the sound of the divine armed crossbow. Who the fuck didn't listen to the order and did it without authorization? Ma Ming was annoyed in his heart, but when he looked at it, his face could not help but change slightly. He saw that his companion, who had been hiding on the top of a house, fell to the ground with a plop. In the center of his forehead, there was a bloody hole, which was gurgling with blood. Ma Ming took a deep breath and realized that his judgment was wrong. The sound of the divine armed crossbow just now did not come from his companions nearby, but from the target. Bang! 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 Before Ma Ming could react, a series of sharp whistling sounds sounded one after another, like a devil sound from hell, surging over the silent and empty street. Ma Ming's face changed completely, and he couldn't keep calm. Because at this moment, he saw dozens of spiritual arrows shot by the divine armed crossbow rushed out of the ruins of the restaurant, tore the void, and shot in all directions along different trajectories. Rumble! For a time, many nearby buildings were broken, rocks splashed, smoke and dust filled the air, accompanied by screams, which obviously made the atmosphere soul-stirring. Ma Ming himself saw that 7 or 8 of his companions, who were hiding everywhere, were killed in an instant. Ma Ming's hands and feet were cold, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He couldn't imagine how the target did this. They had hidden deep enough, but the target was like a sharpshooter who could see through everything. He didn't show up at all, but caused a bloody disaster on their side. Terrible! It was terrible! Ma Ming finally realized why the target could survive from the encirclement and suppression to this day. This guy was simply a devil. All the plans and layouts seemed not to exist in front of him. They were all destroyed by his bloody, cold, and unconventional cruel means. Bang! 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 The sharp whistling sound of the crossbow echoed in this world, like a roar of death, and the shadow of death was everywhere. Ma Ming was completely panicked. He couldn't care about anything else and screamed, "Retreat!" Bang! At this moment, a spiritual arrow, as if tearing the time and space, accurately inserted into Ma Ming's mouth, lifted him up and nailed him to the eaves not far away. Ma Ming's pupils dilated. He didn't know how the target found their hiding place before he died. Bang! 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 The rapid and sharp whistling sound was still reverberating. After a while, in the depths of the ruins of the Maple Tower, Lin Sun put away the insignificant bow and stood up. On the ground beside him, there were dozens of abandoned crossbows. In the sea of his consciousness, the feeling of absolute calmness, which seemed to be able to see through everything, was disappearing quickly, which made Lin Sun's black eyes gradually become warm. From the moment he set foot on the Maple Tower, Lin Sun noticed that something was wrong. Although the diners on the second floor of the restaurant restrained their breath and disguised themselves extremely exquisitely, Lin Sun could judge that they were a group of ruthless people who had been practicing martial arts all year round just by looking at the thick calluses exposed on their palm joints. At first, Lin Sun was not sure that they were coming for him. But later, whether he made chirps appear out of thin air or dealt with Rui Qing and Lin Sun, the reaction of those diners was too calm. They didn't behave like ordinary people at all. If these clues were not enough for Lin Sun to see through all this, when Lin Sun packed up his things and planned to leave with Luo Luo, he instantly noticed that those diners who were eating stopped subconsciously. All of this made Lin Sun completely conclude that this was a trap that had been set up for him long ago. When the battle began, Lin Sun was keenly aware that there were many obscure breaths outside the Maple Tower. When all the enemies in the restaurant were killed and the building was reduced to ruins, Lin Sun took out the insignificance bow. The moment he pulled the bowstring, he immediately keenly perceived that there were practitioners hiding in many nearby buildings. This was the magical effect of the insignificance bow. Every time he pulled the blood-red bowstring, all Lin Sun's consciousness and emotions would enter absolute calmness. At the same time, his vision would also be expanded, as if he could see through everything and let all the dangers appear in his vision. In the Maple Mount, Lin Sun had used the magical effect of the insignificance bow to damage the Ziying battleship at one stroke. But unlike last time, this time Lin Sun only used the wonderful insight ability of the insignificance bow. When he killed the enemy, he used the short crossbow seized from the enemy. The reason why Lin Sun did this was not that he was rich and deliberately wasted the short crossbow, but that the short crossbow didn't consume spiritual energy at all, so he could maintain and save physical strength to the greatest extent. There were 27 enemies in the restaurant, 33 people ambushed outside, and 9 people escaped in the end. Thanks to the insight vision of the insignificance bow, I was able to win this battle. Otherwise, if I rushed out just now, I would have been pierced into a hornet's nest in an instant. Insight vision was the name given by Lin Sun to the wonderful insight power of the insignificance bow. In addition, it also had the wonderful effect of absolute calmness. The more battles Lin Sun experienced, the more he could realize the magic of the insignificance bow. It was definitely a treasure of great origin. The two wonderful effects of insight vision and absolute calmness were incomparable to other spiritual bows. Without further delay, Lin Sun flashed out of the ruins with the basket on his back. There was no one on the empty street. If you looked carefully, there were dead bodies lying on the eaves of the nearby streets and alleys, still bleeding. Lin Sun didn't know whether there were enemies lurking in other places of the Green Willow Town, so as soon as he appeared, he planned to leave immediately. However, what he didn't expect was that before he could act, a group of people rushed over in the distant street. "Father, it's not that I'm incompetent, but that bastard is too cruel. I've told him the name of our Rui family, but he is still rampant and wantonly kills people. Obviously, he doesn't put our Rui family in his eyes at all. Father, you have to help me. The Green Willow Town is our Rui family's territory. How can we tolerate a foreign boy running amok?" The leader was a dignified middle-aged man. Rui Qing, who had been thrown out of the window by Lin Sun before, followed the middle-aged man. At this time, Rui Qing was saying something indignantly. Obviously, the dignified middle-aged man was Rui Qing's father. Behind them were a group of servants, who must be thugs from the Rui family. How did the Maple Tower get destroyed? How did it become like this just after I left? Rui Qing saw the destroyed Maple Tower from a distance. He couldn't help but feel shocked. When he saw Lin Sun in front of the ruins, he gnashed his teeth and shouted angrily. It's him, it's him. P.S. Children's shoes are sung unconsciously in the last sentence, which proves that they are not young. Chapter 305. Rui Qing shouted angrily, which made the middle-aged man fix his eyes on Lin Sun. Just from the appearance, Lin Sun was just a handsome, gentle and harmless young man. But when his eyes met Lin Sun's deep and indifferent black eyes, the dignified middle-aged man's heart inexplicably palpitated. He narrowed his eyes slightly, glanced around and said something inexplicable. "There seems to be a fierce battle here just now?" Lin Sun smiled in his heart. He knew that the middle-aged man was an old fox who had noticed something wrong with the situation. "Yes." Lin Sun nodded. Rui Qing next to him shouted, "Father, there's no need to talk nonsense with him. Just kill him directly." Lin Sun said with a smile, "My friend, if I hadn't thrown you out of the restaurant just now, do you think you could still be alive now?" As he said, he glanced at the restaurant that had long been in ruins in the distance. Rui Qing said angrily, "You fucking saved me? I don't need you to save me." As he said, he rushed up and slapped Lin Sun in the face, as if he had his father to rely on, so he had no scruples to fight. But when Rui Qing just took action, his father frowned and slapped him in the face. Rui Qing staggered and squatted on the ground, covering his face and screaming, "Father! What are you doing?" Rui Qing's face was full of disbelief. Even the servants who followed him were stunned and confused. But the middle-aged man ignored Rui Qing at all. Instead, he cupped his hands to Lin Sun and said gratefully, "Thank you for forgiving the past and repaying the evil with kindness. If I hadn't seen all this with my own eyes, I would have been deceived by my son and caused a misunderstanding." "No, it's nothing," Lin Sun said casually. "Father, do you still believe this guy's nonsense?" Rui Qing shouted. Crack! The middle-aged man slapped him again and scolded, "You blind fool! If it weren't for this child, how could you still be alive?" Rai Ching was stunned and wanted to cry. What did he mean by saving his life? It was that guy who threw him out of the restaurant. Was this called saving his life? Shut up! The majestic middle-aged man stared at him, which made Rai Ching tremble and shut up immediately. The dignified middle-aged man was really angry. As long as he had a little brain, he would know that if Rai Ching had stayed in the restaurant, how could he have survived? Even if Rai Ching was beaten and humiliated and thrown out of the window, as long as he was alive, it was not a big deal at all. I'm sorry to make you laugh. My son grew up in Green Willowtown. He is like a frog at the bottom of a well. He is arrogant and ignorant. If he has offended you, please forgive him. The dignified middle-aged man cupped his hands in obeisance. His attitude was so sincere that Lin Sun couldn't help but suspect that this pair of father and son were really different. One was as shrewd as an old fox, while the other was as dull as an idiot. The difference was too great. "Little friend, if you don't mind, please come to my humble abode and prepare a banquet to express my gratitude." As the dignified middle-aged man spoke, he extended an invitation. At a glance, he could tell that Lin Sun was not an ordinary person, even though he dressed inconspicuously, but his breath was extremely unique. "There's no need. If it's possible, I'd like to ask Senior for a small favor," Lin Sun said. The dignified middle-aged man was in a daze, and then he said freely, "Little friend, just say it. There are a total of 51 corpses in the nearby area and in the ruins. Senior, please send your subordinates to help me collect the items they are carrying," Lin Sun said with a smile. The dignified middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and waved his hand to let the subordinates behind him act according to the order. Then he looked at Lin Sun with a little surprise and asked in a low voice, "My young friend, may I ask if those corpses were all killed by you?" Lin Sun smiled silently and didn't say anything. But this was the most obvious answer. The dignified middle-aged man couldn't help but take a deep breath. Through his observation just now, he knew that the battle that could destroy a maple tower like this was not a small one. It showed that the opponents of the young man in front of him must be extremely powerful, at least in the human gang realm. Great. The dignified middle-aged man sighed with emotion. He didn't ask about the cause and effect of the battle because he didn't want to be involved in this storm. Before long, a group of subordinates returned, each holding a variety of spiritual weapons, short crossbows and spiritual bows, which piled up into a hill. The dignified middle-aged man glanced at them, and then he was in a trance for a moment. Holy crossbow, armor-piercing crossbow, blood-breaking crossbow. If there were only a few of them, it would be fine, but now there were dozens of them. Just these alone were worth thousands of gold coins. But this was only a small part of the spoils of the young man in front of him. In addition, there were dozens of inner armors, dozens of pairs of boots, dozens of pairs of wrist guards, as well as a variety of spiritual weapons of human rank and hundreds of kinds of medicinal pills for healing and repairing. What shocked the dignified middle-aged man most was that the equipment, spiritual weapons and medicinal pills were all unified, which was a fine product that could hardly be bought in the market. At this time, not only the dignified middle-aged man, but also his subordinates were shocked. They fell into silence, breathed heavily, and their eyes were red and burning with greed. Rai Ching was even worse. His eyeballs almost fell out and his mouth was wide open. There was only one voice echoing in his mind. How much the hell was it worth? Everyone, although the things on the dead body are valuable, they are very hot to hold in your hand. Maybe you will get yourself killed. At this time, Lin Sun spoke. His voice was light, but it was no less than a thunder in the ears of the dignified middle-aged man. His face suddenly changed, and his eyes suddenly burst with a frightening cold light. He coldly swept his eyes over those subordinates, Just now when we were cleaning up the spoils of war, hand them over quickly, otherwise don't blame this old man for being impolite." Those subordinates were all stiff, and many of them looked unnatural. But from beginning to end, no one admitted that they had taken the opportunity to hide things. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Well, since you don't worry about the revenge of those big shots from the Forbidden City, I won't say anything more." As he spoke, he had begun to collect the spoils on the ground. But when his words fell into the ears of the dignified middle-aged man and his subordinates, they were shocked again. Those dead bodies turned out to be practitioners from the Forbidden City, the capital of the Empire. "This is the last chance. Hand them over now, and I won't pursue it any further. If anyone dares to hide such things, I will kill his whole family," the dignified middle-aged man roared. He was completely afraid. No matter what Lin Sun said was true or false, he dared not take any chances. At the moment, 7 or 8 subordinates stood up and handed over some spiritual weapons, looking depressed. "You deserve to die." The dignified middle-aged man was so angry that his hair stood up. Lin Sun smiled, put away all the spoils and waved his hand. "Goodbye, everyone." As soon as his voice fell, he had strode away. Watching Lin Sun's figure gradually disappear at the end of the street, the dignified middle-aged man's expression changed. Finally, he sighed and took back his eyes. "Father, just let him go like this?" Rui Qing said unwillingly. This time, the dignified middle-aged man didn't get angry. He looked gloomy and said, "Those things are not what we can touch." "Do you really believe that boy's words?" Rui Qing asked. The dignified middle-aged man waved his hand and told those subordinates to carry all the nearby dead bodies one by one. Looking at the miserable appearance of those dead bodies, the dignified middle-aged man couldn't help but feel cold and creepy. He took a deep breath and said, "Look, many of these practitioners are Heavengang realm powerhouses, but in the end, they were all hit in the vital parts and died, and all of this is the work of that young man just now." When everyone heard this, they were all shocked, including Rui Qing. The dignified middle-aged man continued, "Think about it again. Those spiritual weapons just now are the best of the unified standard spiritual weapons. They can't be bought on the market at all. Which force do you think can send so many masters at once and equip them with such excellent equipment?" At this moment, everyone was shocked by this speculation and felt cold all over. "I have a hunch that the boy didn't lie to us. These dead bodies are all strong practitioners from a big force in the Forbidden City. Only those forces can dispatch so many elite practitioners at once." The dignified middle-aged man's expression was complicated, with fear, joy, and shock. "Father, that boy dared to kill so many people. Isn't he worried about being retaliated against?" Rui Qing asked in a trembling voice. "We can't get involved in this kind of thing. Don't mention it again in the future. Although no one dares to provoke us in the Green Willow Town, we are nothing in the eyes of those real big forces. Once we are involved in this storm, there will definitely be a disaster." The dignified middle-aged man took a few deep breaths and gritted his teeth. "Remember, no one can leak what happened today. Otherwise, I promise to kill his whole family." Everyone nodded in unison and kept silent. At this time, Lin Sun had walked out of the Green Willow Town. In front of him was a shallow jungle with a broad field of vision. According to Lin Sun's calculation, he had reached half of the journey here. If everything went well, he could reach the Forbidden City in 7 days. Obviously, the next road would only be more dangerous, and it would be impossible to have a smooth journey. However, as long as there were no practitioners beyond the Gang Spirit Realm, Lin Sun was not afraid of any danger he would encounter next. In the basket, Luoluo had fallen asleep. The little girl couldn't stand the fright. At the beginning of the battle, Lin Sun drove the power of his consciousness C to hypnotize her. Su Qianjing. With this tactical master, I'm afraid that the next encirclement and suppression will be more and more dangerous. Fortunately, I can successfully break through to the Earthgang realm recently. I'm afraid that Su Qianjing can't predict this situation at all. Lin Sun was lost in thought as he hurried along. P.S. Thank you for your gift. Congratulations on your promotion and becoming the leader of the alliance. Scatter flowers. Chapter 306. In the previous battles, Lin Sun had learned from some captured practitioners that it was Qi family, one of the top 7 aristocratic families in the Forbidden City, who mobilized forces to deal with him. The one who presided over this action was a descendant of Qi family named Qi Tsangmei and Su Qianjing, a young tactical master from Green Deer School. Lin Sun dared not to be careless for a tactical master like Su Qianjing, who was good at arranging troops. Lin Sun even suspected that Su Qianjing had already known his fighting style and strength through the encirclement and suppression actions in the past few days. In this case, the more the enemy knew about him, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. However, if he could break through to the Earthgang realm in the near future, the situation would change again. Even if Su Qianjing wanted to deal with him, he needed to find out his strength again. If Su Qianjing wanted to do this, he needed to spend more time to collect intelligence and carry out research and deduction. As long as there was a buffer time, Lin Sun could take advantage of many opportunities. However, Lin Sun didn't know that all his thoughts and deductions at this time were a little redundant, because before he damaged the Ziying battleship, Su Qianjing had been deprived of his command by Qi Tsangmei and left quietly. But anyway, Lin Sun had a strong feeling of promotion. If there was no accident, he would break through to the Earthgang realm in the next few days. This way of promotion was a kind of uncontrollable eruption. It was natural and just like water overflowing when it was full. It tested whether the practitioner's cultivation foundation had been solid to the extreme. Lin Sun himself was also looking forward to what kind of surprise his combat effectiveness would bring him when he stepped into the Earthgang realm. After several hours, Lin Sun's field of vision became clearer. He could see the outline of a city on the horizon in the far distance. That was Yellow Dragon City, a bustling big city in Star Cloud Province in the middle of the Empire. According to the route planned by Lin Sun before, Yellow Dragon City was one of the necessary cities. Lin Sun planned to reach Yellow Dragon City before dark, and then find a safe place to practice in seclusion to prepare for the promotion to the Earthgang realm. It was too dangerous in the wilderness. If there was any danger during the promotion, he would definitely suffer a fatal blow. As for whether he would encounter danger in the Yellow Dragon City, Lin Sun didn't worry too much. What a joke, that was a bustling city in the Empire. No matter how unbridled the enemy was, they would definitely not dare to act against him as openly as they did in the past. Just as Lin Sun was moving forward, he suddenly noticed that there was a team coming this way in the distance. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed. When he was speculating whether the team was the enemy, he inadvertently found that a beast carriage in front of the team was hanging a flag with golden cloud pattern, on which the words Keystone Business were written. How could they meet the team of Keystone Business here? Lin Sun was stunned. As the team approached, he unexpectedly found an acquaintance, Wang Lin. Wang Lin was an appraiser of Keystone Business in Donglin Town and also the most powerful subordinate of Mu Wansu. When Lin Sun was in Donglin Town, he had met Wang Lin before, but he didn't expect to meet him here. Lin Sun, why are you here? Almost at the same time, Wang Lin, who was sitting on the beast carriage, also found Lin Sun. He immediately waved his hand in surprise. Immediately, the group of more than 100 people stopped. Wang Lin quickly got off the beast carriage and came to Lin Sun. He said with a smile, "I didn't expect to meet you in this wilderness." Lin Sun was speechless. "I didn't expect it either. Come with me. Miss Wansu is also in the team. If she sees you, she will be very surprised, haha." As he said, Wang Lin took Lin Sun to the center of the team. Along the way, Lin Sun noticed that the team of Keystone Business was very unique. In addition to dozens of alert guards, there were many teenagers. Although they looked young, they were full of spirit. When Lin Sun looked at those teenagers also looked at Lin Sun curiously. These are the good seedlings selected by Miss Wansu from Keystone Business in the Yellow Dragon City. With a little training, they can become the most powerful subordinate. Wang Lin explained casually. Lin Sun was stunned and said, "Why did they go so far just to select subordinates?" Wang Lin lowered his voice and explained, "Miss Wansu has just established herself in Miss City, and there is a lack of people around her. However, in order to prevent the situation of being planted by spies, she can only choose people far away." Lin Sun understood and couldn't help sighing with emotion. If you want to do something, you have to lay a good foundation first. When using people, loyalty is undoubtedly the core prerequisite. Wang Lin smiled and said, "That's right." Lin Sun just remembered that when he was about to leave Miss City, he went to Keystone Business to say goodbye to Mu Wansu, but was told that she was not there. It turned out that she went to Keystone Business in the Yellow Dragon City to select subordinate. Wang Lin, why did the team stop? Before he walked to the center of the team, he saw a silver-robed man coming over with a displeased face. The silver-robed man looked dignified, with a feather crown on his head, a jade belt around his waist, a pair of dragon-patterned boots on his feet, and a gold-painted jade fan in his hand. His every move revealed a domineering and arrogant aura. "I met a friend of Miss Wansu on the way. I'll take him to see Miss Wansu." Wang Lin's expression became cold, and there was an imperceptible sense of disgust and rejection hidden between his eyebrows. Then he took Lin Sun forward. However, the silver-robed man snorted coldly and moved his feet to block Lin Sun's way. He said, "What friend? Why didn't I see him?" He clearly saw Lin Sun, but pretended not to see him, which was extremely arrogant and rude. At this time, even Lin Sun couldn't help frowning. He could clearly feel that the silver-robed man had an undisguised hostility to him. Wang Lin's face became gloomy. He took a deep breath and said, "Child Lu, this is Miss Wansu's friend Lin Sun." Then he introduced Lin Sun to Lin Sun. "Lin Sun, this is child Lu Xiaoyun." Lin Sun nodded, and suddenly there was a subtle sound transmission from Wang Lin. "This guy's father is Lu Tianzhao, a deacon elder in the headquarters of Keystone Business in the Forbidden City. Lu Xiaotsong boasts himself to be a playboy. Relying on his father's name, he flirts with women everywhere. He is ignorant and incompetent and has a bad reputation. It is said that he offended a nobleman with a strong background in the Forbidden City for a woman and was driven out of the Forbidden City by his father. This time, when Miss Wansu went to the Yellow Dragon City to handle affairs, she met Lu Xiaoyun. He immediately stuck to her like a dog-skin plaster. Obviously, he coveted Miss Wansu's beauty. But anyway, his father is a deacon elder in the headquarters of Keystone Business. Miss Wansu can't do anything to him, so she can only let him follow her. The sound transmission explanation suddenly made Lin Sun understand. While Wang Lin was explaining, Lu Xiaotsong also looked at Lin Sun up and down and scrupulously. Then he sneered. "This little guy is just over 10 years old, and his clothes are so shabby. How can he become friends with Miss Wansu?" This kind of naked ridicule could be heard as long as one was not deaf. Wang Lin didn't expect that Lu Xiaoyun's mouth was so vicious. His face suddenly darkened and he said, "Child Lu, please behave yourself." Lu Xiaoyun raised the jade fan in his hand and slammed it at Wang Lin's forehead. "Dog slave, how dare you talk to me like this?" Crack! The jade fan was still in the air when it was caught by a palm. It was Lin Sun. He really couldn't stand it anymore. Originally, he thought that Rui Qing was arrogant enough when he met him in Green Willow Town. Unexpectedly, compared with Lu Xiaoyun in front of him, Rui Qing was nothing. "You're courting death." The jade fan was caught. Lu Xiaoyun tried his best but failed to break free. He immediately cursed and kicked Lin Sun. Crack! Lin Sun hit Lu Xiaoyun's cheek with his fist, which collapsed Lu Xiaoyun's nose. With a buzz in his head, Lu Xiaoyun saw stars and his body flew out uncontrollably. This was not the end. Lin Sun didn't say a word of nonsense. He rushed up and beat Lu Xiaoyun so hard that he curled up on the ground and screamed miserably. Wang Lin was stunned at once. Lu Xiaoyun was arrogant enough, but he just talked. Lin Sun didn't say a word of nonsense and directly beat Lu Xiaoyun. Compared with Lu Xiaoyun, Lin Sun seemed extremely powerful and domineering. To be honest, Wang Lin was quite happy to see Lu Xiaoyun being beaten like this. But when he thought of Lu Xiaoyun's identity, he suddenly had a headache. The movement here had already attracted the attention of many people in the convoy. But when they saw Lu Xiaoyun being beaten, no one came forward to stop him. On the contrary, they all felt very happy like Wang Lin. Along the way, Lu Xiaoyun pretended to be arrogant. As long as someone didn't sleep, he would abuse and accuse, which made the guards very angry. But because Mu Wansu had told them not to offend Lu Xiaoyun, they didn't dare to say anything even though they were angry. Now seeing Lin Sun beat this playboy as soon as he came up, how could they not be happy? Bastard! Do you know who I am? Lu Xiaoyun was beaten black and blue and screamed. Bang! 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 What greeted him was a round of crazy kicks. You're dead! You're dead! Lu Xiaoyun was so angry that he was about to explode. With a howl, his mouth was stuffed with a ball of stinky mud, and he could no longer make a sound. Finally, he rolled his eyes and fainted. Seeing this, Lin Sun stopped and exhaled a long breath of turbid air, feeling refreshed. He glanced around and said with a smile, "Don't mind me. It's the first time that I found out that there is such a guy who needs a beating. If I don't satisfy his desire for a beating this time, I will feel a little sorry. P.S. Thank you, my old brother, for your gift." Furthermore, the goldfish had made a very awkward mistake. Only by tipping would the monthly tickets be doubled. However, regarding gifts, Goldfish's attitude had always been to act according to one's ability. It was friendship, so one should be grateful and grateful. Although Goldfish was also very jealous of other authors' friends who spent a lot of money and were so rich, Goldfish still said that acting according to one's ability was the most important thing. Chapter 307. Wang Lin smiled bitterly. The nearby guards all showed admiration on their faces. Look, this young hero was so domineering that he started to fight without saying a word. It was so satisfying. At this time, Lin Sun suddenly raised his head, looked at the center of the team, and said loudly, "Sister Wansu, I have helped you solve the trouble. If you don't show up, I will be very disappointed." It turned out that as early as when he beat Lu Xiaoyun, Lin Sun had already noticed a wisp of consciousness passing out of the chariot in the center of the team and paying attention to this side quietly. There was no doubt that it was Mu Wansu. What's more, as the leader of this team, how could Mu Wansu not notice such a big noise here? Sure enough, as soon as Lin Sun's voice fell, he saw Mu Wansu in a black dress, with a face as delicate as a blooming wild rose, walking gracefully. Help me solve the trouble? You are never a reckless person. Since you dare to fight unscrupulously, you must have a plot. Mu Wansu came over and stared at Lin Sun with her starry eyes. Lin Sun smiled at once. "Sister Wansu, you really have a keen eye. To be honest, after being reminded by you, I do have one thing that I need your help with." Mu Wansu said angrily, "Don't play dumb. You must have already planned it. Come with me." As she said, she turned back to her own chariot. From beginning to end, she didn't look at Lu Xiaoyun, who was in a coma on the ground. Lin Sun smiled, cupped his hands and said to the people around, "Everyone, please don't touch this guy. I will take him away later, so as not to make trouble for you." Everyone suddenly smiled and shouted, "Child, you are so loyal. We will make friends with you." Lin Sun smiled and walked towards Mu Wansu. Wang Lin was stunned and quickly followed him, saying, "Lin Sun, are you really going to take Lu Xiaoyun away? His father is—" Before he finished, Lin Sun interrupted, "Don't worry. A wicked person will be tortured by another wicked person. For this kind of guy, I can only act as a wicked person for the time being. Wang Lin was stunned. Temporarily acting as the villain? When you do evil, which villain can compare to you? While talking, Lin Sun had already boarded the chariot in the center of the team and sat opposite to Mu Wansu. Mu Wansu was making tea, and the fragrance was overflowing. Her beauty was otherworldly while her skin was glistening and moist, and every single move she made carried an aura that was pleasing to the eye as she brewed tea with a delicate hand. Thank you this time. If you didn't show up, I would still be worried about how to deal with Lu Xiaoyun. Mu Wansu handed over a mutton-fat jade cup full of tea. Sister Wansu, you are too kind. Lin Sun smiled and drank up the tea. Then he said seriously, Sister Wansu, how can I not help you when you are in trouble? What bullsh *t about drawing the sword to help? Only a ghost would believe you. Lin and said Lin Xianlin and said, he was, Lin is. Lin Sun said with a smile, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet Sister Wansu here. What's the matter? Mu Wansu didn't want to argue with Lin Sun and asked directly. Lin Sun pointed to the basket behind him. Mu Wansu looked over and noticed that there was a little girl sleeping soundly in the basket. She couldn't help being stunned. Are you crazy enough to abduct this little girl? I won't help you. Lin Sun said angrily, do I look like that kind of person? Mu Wansu said seriously, not just like that. You are. After that, she couldn't help laughing. Her eyes were full of charm. Lin Sun also laughed. Since leaving Mist City, he had been besieged and chased by a group of enemies all the way. His mind was always tense, and he had never slacked off. It was rare for him to meet Mu Wansu, an acquaintance. He felt much more relaxed. At the same time, Lin Sun hated the Qi family in the Forbidden City, who caused all this. He even suspected that the Qi family was very likely to be the enemy who dug away his spiritual vein, according to the news Xu Jin said at that time. Otherwise, how could they stop him from going to the Forbidden City by all means after knowing his origin? Of course, this was just Lin Sun's speculation. But anyway, since the Qi family dared to do this, they were already a major suspect. Tell me what's going on. Mu Wansu asked and made another cup of tea for Lin Sun. Lin Sun thought for a while and said, I want you to help me take this little girl back to Mist City, and then tell Yu to help me transfer this little girl to the bloodthirsty camp and let Drill Master young man take care of her. Mu Wansu was stunned. Can I know the reason? Lin Sun didn't hide it and briefly explained that he was chased. His words were understated, but Mu Wansu's expression suddenly became solemn. Later, there was a touch of surprise in her eyes. Someone wants to stop you from going to the Forbidden City? Do you know who those enemies are? Lin Sun said casually, Sister Wansu, you'd better not ask about it. You just need to know that my enemies are very powerful this time. Mu Wansu frowned and said, Don't regard me as an outsider. Lin Sun smiled without saying anything, but his eyes were extremely firm. He couldn't say it, and he couldn't involve Mu Wansu in it. Mu Wansu stared at Lin Sun for a long time and realized that Lin Sun couldn't tell her the answer even if she tried her best. She was still unwilling to give up and said, Based on your relationship with Yu, maybe you can ask him for help at this time. Lin Sun smiled slightly. Keystone business doesn't belong to Yu. What's more, even if Keystone business comes forward, I'm afraid it can't help me. Even Keystone business couldn't help Lin Sun? Mu Wansu's eyes narrowed and she was shocked. Even Keystone business couldn't help Lin Sun. How powerful was the force to deal with Lin Sun? After a long silence, Mu Wansu said with a complicated expression, Why do you always provoke so many enemies? Since you know it's dangerous to go to the Forbidden City, why do you still do this? Lin Sun said with a smile, I'm not the kind of person who is afraid of difficulties. Mu Wansu was not in the mood to joke with Lin Sun this time. After thinking for a long time, she sighed softly. Well, since you don't want to say it, I won't force you. Lin Sun said, What about the thing I just said? Mu Wansu said, Don't worry. I'll take care of the little girl. Lin Sun immediately felt relieved and said seriously, Thank you very much. Mu Wansu said grumpily, As long as you are polite, I will feel scared. I always feel that you have other plans, so don't be polite to me in the future. Lin Sun nodded happily. After chatting for a short time, Lin Sun left. Before leaving, Lin Sun touched the little head of Luoluo, who was sleeping soundly, and said to Mu Wansu, When she wakes up, tell her to face the reality bravely so that she can live strongly. Mu Wansu was stunned. She is only 3 or 4 years old. She can't understand. Lin Sun shook his head and said, When she lost her mother, she should have learned to grow up hard. After that, Lin Sun took Lu Xiaoyun, who was in a coma, and strode away. Hey, Lu Xiaoyun's identity is not ordinary. Don't kill him. Mu Wansu warned Lin Sun from a distance. Don't worry, I will take good care of him. Lin Sun waved his hand without looking back, and his figure soon disappeared in the vast wilderness. Miss Wansu, will it bring trouble to Lin Sun by doing this? Wang Lin was worried. Mu Wansu curled her lips and said, This boy is in trouble every day. It's not a big deal. What you should worry about is whether Lu Xiaoyun will really be killed by this boy. As she said, she had already walked to the carriage. Wang Lin was stunned. Thinking of Lin Sun's character, he couldn't help but laugh. Lin Sun was not a person who could be measured by common sense. Near evening, Lin Sun finally saw the outline of Yellow Dragon City clearly. Majestic, ancient, magnificent. This was Lin Sun's most intuitive feeling. The rolling ancient city wall was bathed in a magnificent color in the setting sun. Even at dusk, many figures could still be seen going in and out of the spacious and tall city gate, which was extremely lively. Lu Xiaoyun was slapped in the face, and the burning pain woke him up from his coma. When he opened his eyes, he saw Lin Sun. His face changed at once, and he was about to scream. But Lin Sun said indifferently, If you don't want to die, stay with me. Lin Sun's voice was calm, but the killing intent inadvertently revealed in his eyes was like a cold knife stabbing into Lu Xiaoyun's heart. Lu Xiaoyun shivered all over and asked in fear, Where are you taking me? He was really panicked. As soon as he woke up, there was only Lin Sun in front of him. How could Lu Xiaoyun not understand his situation? Don't worry. When I leave Yellow Dragon City, I will set you free. Lin Sun said and strode towards Yellow Dragon City in the distance. Oh, by the way, I poisoned you, so you'd better follow me and don't get lost. Poison? Lu Xiaoyun's face suddenly changed. He carefully sensed his body, but found nothing. But when he saw Lin Sun's fearless look, he immediately extinguished the hope in his heart. He didn't dare to disbelieve it. If he really died of poison, it would be completely over. What do you want? Lu Xiaoyun chased up and asked anxiously and angrily. Nothing, Lin Sun said casually. The more he said so, the more suspicious Lu Xiaoyun was. He couldn't help gritting his teeth and saying, Don't go too far. If I dare to have any accident, you will never have a good end. You are going too far. You bastard! Can't you have some reaction? I have never seen a person like you. Seeing Lin Sun's confident look, Lu Xiaoyun was shocked and angry, frightened and worried. His heart was tangled with indescribable powerlessness and despair. He had never seen such a stubborn and unscrupulous guy since he was a child. It seemed that he didn't care about anything, but he was unscrupulous when he fought. This made Lu Xiaoyun desperate. He felt that he was like a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Chapter 308 Yellow Dragon City. As soon as Lin Sun walked in, he was greeted by a wave of noise. The spacious streets were clean and tidy. Pedestrians weaved through the streets, and it was bustling with activity. Everywhere was a bustling scene. Compared with Mist City, it was not much worse. Lin Sun, like a tourist, walked along the street and looked at the flowers along the way. Lu Xiaoyun, with a gloomy look, followed Lin Sun step by step like a sullen follower. Interesting. Suddenly, Lin Sun chuckled as if he was talking to himself. What did you say? Lu Xiaoyun was stunned. Lin Sun ignored him and went straight ahead. Lu Xiaoyun's face turned blue and white. If possible, he would like to eat Lin Sun alive. This guy was so hateful. But in the end, he had to suppress his resentment and grievance and follow Lin Sun. Attention, the target has appeared, and a man in brocade clothes is following him. Send a scout to keep an eye on the target, and then the others go to find out the details of the man in brocade clothes. Remember, be careful. The target is an extremely dangerous person. Don't take action without orders. From the moment Lin Sun and Lu Xiaoyun entered the Yellow Dragon City, many eyes had been staring at them in the dark. Inn of Blessings. Lin Sun asked for 2 adjacent rooms on the first floor. He lived in one room and the other one was arranged for Lu Xiaoyun. I'm going to practice in isolation for a few days. You stay here. If you run around and die of poison, you'll be responsible for the consequences. Lin Sun told him and turned into the room. As soon as Lu Xiaoyun opened his mouth, he saw the door slam, which made his lips twitch fiercely. He couldn't wait to fight with Lin Sun at all costs. What a bastard! How could he bully others like this? If you want to kill me, give me a clear answer. In the end, Lu Xiaoyun looked depressed and regretted. If he had known this, he would not have provoked Lin Sun. But obviously it was too late to regret. No, I can't just sit still and wait for death. After turning around and walking into his room, Lu Xiaoyun finally decided that he had to rely on himself to save himself. He couldn't expect Lin Sun, the damn bastard, to be merciful and let him go. He gritted his teeth, picked up a pen and paper, and began to write. As the son of Lu Tianzhao, the executive elder of Keystone Business in the Forbidden City, Lu Xiaoyun was not a fool, although he was ignorant and arrogant. He knew very well that what he could rely on at present was his identity. After writing a letter and sealing it, Lu Xiaoyun walked out of the room and secretly summoned a waiter. He transmitted his voice to the waiter and gave him a gold coin. The waiter quickly left with a happy look on his face. After doing all this, Lu Xiaoyun finally felt much better. He consciously returned to the room and waited quietly. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, several men in brocade robes followed an old man like stars surrounding the moon. They hurried to the Inn of Blessings and entered Lu Xiaoyun's room. At the same time, Lin Sun's room was empty. There was no shadow of Lin Sun. There was only a floor in the corner that had been lifted. But very quickly, a slight cracking sound was heard, and the piece of floorboard that was lifted up closed again. If one didn't look carefully, there wouldn't be a trace of it at all. The night lights were on. Before long, the group of men in brocade robes surrounded the old man and left the Inn of Blessings. In the room, Lu Xiaoyun smiled proudly and sipped the wine leisurely. He looked very comfortable. Have you found out? In a tea-house diagonally opposite the Inn of Blessings, an ordinary-looking man wearing a bamboo hat asked casually. Yes, the man beside the target is Lu Xiaoyun. His father is Lu Tianzhao. He is an executive elder of Keystone Business in the Forbidden City. Opposite the man in the bamboo hat, a thin, dark-skinned young man whispered quickly. At the same time, the Lu family can be regarded as a middle-level aristocratic family in the Forbidden City, but its background is a little worse than those ancient clans with a long history. Keystone Business? The Lu family? How dare they get involved in this action? The man in the bamboo hat was stunned. He frowned for a moment and said, Have you found out the relationship between Lu Xiaoyun and the target? Not yet. The thin young man shook his head. At this moment, an obese man came from a distance. He sat opposite the man in the bamboo hat and said, Boss, I found out that Lu Xiaoyun was asking for help from Li Tianbao, the shopkeeper of Keystone Business in the Yellow Dragon City. The man in the bamboo hat narrowed his eyes, revealing an imperceptible light, and said, "Ho ho, I didn't expect that Lu Xiaoyun was so bold. He really planned to use his father's power to find someone to help the target? He was really tired of living." If Lu Xiaoyun heard this, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. The reason why he asked for help was just to save himself. How could he help Lin Sun? Unfortunately, Lu Xiaoyun was not there, and misunderstandings often arose in this way. "Boss, those guys are coming out." Suddenly, the thin young man on the other side spoke, which made the man in the bamboo hat and the obese man look at the door of the Inn of Blessings at the same time. Immediately, they saw that a group of men in brocade clothes surrounded an old man and left in a chariot. "Boss, that old guy is Li Tianbao, the shopkeeper of Keystone Business in the Yellow Dragon City." The obese man's eyes brightened. This time, the man in the bamboo hat finally confirmed that Lu Xiaoyun really intended to intervene in this matter and help the target. After all, he just saw Li Tianbao walk into the Inn of Blessings with a group of people. If this was a coincidence, no one would believe it. "Hey, I really didn't expect that the young master of the Lu family was really loyal. In order to help the target, he even did not hesitate to fight against us. It's amazing, really amazing." The thin young man sneered. His words were sarcastic, which was obviously ironic. Loyal? I think he is deceiving his father, deceiving his family. If he dares to fight against us at this time, even Keystone Business can't save his Lu family." The man in the bamboo hat took a deep breath and ordered, "Mobilize all forces to closely monitor the Inn of Blessings and pay close attention to the movements of Keystone Business in the Yellow Dragon City. I need more detailed intelligence and information." After a pause, the man in the bamboo hat continued, "In addition, send someone to sneak into the Inn of Blessings as an attendant to investigate what the target is planning at a close distance. Using the power of Lu Xiaoyun to fight against our encirclement and suppression? Don't even think about it." "Yes." The thin young man and the obese man took the order and left. Before long, the man in the bamboo hat also got up and left in a hurry. He sealed the news about this place with a secret method and sent it out by a wind shadow hawk. In the old mansion in the Forbidden City. Bang! Qi Tsangmei couldn't control her anger. She smashed the table in front of her with one palm and the debris flew. Her clear eyes were like a knife, sharp and cold. With a compelling momentum surging all over her body, she said coldly, "The action in the Green Willow town also failed. Don't you know how to make a layout without Su Qianjing?" A group of deputies nearby kept silent with a gloomy look. Before, the Wind Shadow Hawk sent back the news about the action in the Green Willow town and the light curtain recording the battle. Qi Tsangmei couldn't bear the anger in her heart when she saw that they still failed to kill the target with so many forces and laid an inescapable net. What made Qi Tsangmei feel most embarrassed was that the short crossbows used by the target in the battle in the Green Willow town were all from their Qi family. But now, the weapons of their family were used to kill the people on their side. This was a silent slap in the face. "Princess Mei, you were not there in the previous actions, so you didn't know the situation. In fact, the failure of this action is no different from the previous ones. It's not a tactical problem, but the target is too strong," someone said hesitantly, which got the approval of others. They had been cooperating with Su Qianjing to make layout actions before and saw how the target broke through the encirclement again and again. But Qi Tsangmei was different. It was the first time for her to participate in the layout, so it was normal that she didn't know the situation. Although this was a fact, it was so harsh in Qi Tsangmei's view. Her face turned cold and she laughed angrily. "So, you think it's normal for this action to fail?" Everyone suddenly trembled in their hearts and shook their heads. Qi Tsangmei, who was furious, might go berserk at any time. They didn't want to provoke Qi Tsangmei. At this time, a guard hurried into the room and said, "There is news from the front line that the target has appeared in the Yellow Dragon City." But the situation is a bit strange this time. There is one more Lu Xiaoyun beside the target. The guard quickly explained the situation to him. All the deputies were furious when they heard that, and they flew into a rage. Lu Xiaoyun is so audacious. He must be tired of living. I know Lu Xiaoyun. His father is indeed a powerful figure in keystone business, but he himself is extremely unbearable. He is arrogant and domineering. I wonder if his heart is smeared with lard. How dare he choose to fight against us? No matter what keystone business or Lu family, he is our enemy since he chooses to help the target recklessly. These deputies were all from the rich and powerful families in the Forbidden City. In terms of identity, they were even more distinguished than Lu Xiaoyun. Naturally, they didn't put Lu Xiaoyun in their eyes. Knowing that Lu Xiaoyun was crazy to help Lin Sun, these rich and powerful people were immediately enraged. They couldn't do anything to Lin Sun for the time being, but it was not a problem to deal with Lu Xiaoyun. If Lu Xiaoyun knew this, how would he react? Would he want to cry but have no tears, or would he be angered to death? Send my oral order to Lu family. Ask them whether it is Lu Xiaoyun's own idea or they are behind it. My patience is limited. Let them give me a clear answer as soon as possible. Qi Tsangmei seemed very calm at the moment. After a little thought, she made a decision. P.S. Go out to do things in the evening. Please refresh the page, and the second chapter will be updated. Goldfish Club was very busy these days. Another buddy was going to get married, so he needed to help. However, the update would not stop. Chapter 309. Qi Tsangmei's decision refreshed all the deputies. In the name of Qi family, one of the 7 top aristocratic families, Lu family, which was only a middle-level aristocratic family, had to admit defeat. In this way, it was wishful thinking for Lu Xiaoyun to help the target fight against them. Even in order to calm the anger of Qi family, Lu family was very likely to kill Lu Xiaoyun. This was the power of power. When the two sides were unequal in power, the other side would either admit defeat or wait to be attacked. What about keystone business? Someone realized a problem and asked aloud. Qi Tsangmei's heart was filled with unspeakable contempt, not for keystone business, but for the person who asked the question. Do you think that Qi family and keystone business will fall out with each other just because of Lu Xiaoyun? You think too highly of Lu Xiaoyun, don't you? Qi Tsangmei's voice was cold with unspeakable irony, which made the person feel embarrassed and uncomfortable. Although Lu Tianzhao, Lu Xiaoyun's father, was one of the deacon elders with real power in keystone business, anyone with a normal brain knew that Lu Xiaoyun was an ignorant and incompetent playboy. How could keystone business stand up for him? What Lu Xiaoyun did now was just taking advantage of his father's power. Well, that's it. Lu Xiaoyun is just a clown. It's not worth mentioning. What we really need to do is to deal with the target. Taking a deep breath, Qi Tsangmei began to give orders. Mobilize all forces to control the outside of the Yellow Dragon City. When the target appears, we must go all out to encircle and annihilate it no matter what means we use. In addition, send out all the remaining 5 Ziying battleships to cooperate with the action and carry out a comprehensive attack on the target in the air. Hearing this, the deputies were shocked and their expressions changed suddenly. Qi Tsangmei's arrangement was no different from a desperate gamble. Although several previous encirclement and annihilation operations ended in failure, they only lost hundreds of elite practitioners in total. In other words, there were still more than 2,000 fresh troops on their side. But now, Qi Tsangmei wanted to gather all the forces outside the Yellow Dragon City and send out all the remaining 5 Ziying battleships. It was obvious that Qi Tsangmei intended to have a decisive battle with the target in this action. That was crazy. This was tantamount to throwing away all tactics and arrangements, intending to use absolute strength to carry out a brutal and direct frontal attack. But thinking about it carefully, under the current circumstances, if he really did that, his chances of success would undoubtedly be greatly increased. Imagine that more than 2,000 elite practitioners cooperated with 5 Zing battleships to crush the target. How terrible the scene would be! In this case, no matter how heaven-defying the target's combat strength was, he would probably be buried by the tide-like attacks. This operation is a desperate move. If we win, I will hold a grand celebration banquet for all of you. Chi Tsangmei glanced around, but if it fails, everyone's heart trembled as they felt an indescribable pressure. I will not be able to give an explanation to the clan, and all of you will not be able to obtain my forgiveness. Chi Tsangmei's voice was sonorous and powerful. After a short pause, her expression returned to normal, and she said, "Of course, under such an all-out attack, the chances of the target surviving are next to nothing. Everyone, don't worry too much. As long as we don't make any mistakes, we'll already win." After giving the order, Chi Tsangmei left the mansion and walked alone in the streets in the middle of the night. The reason why she did this was not that she was exhausted, but that she deeply realized that they had little chance from the moment the target entered the Yellow Dragon City. The Yellow Dragon City was located in the middle of the empire, less than 1,000 miles away from the Forbidden City. On this road, there were many imperial forces around the capital. In addition, between the Yellow Dragon City and the Forbidden City, most of them were rich and prosperous cities. There were many pedestrians and some powerful practitioners. Under such circumstances, it was undoubtedly difficult to find a suitable opportunity to dispatch forces to encircle and suppress the target without causing other disturbances and influences. Therefore, it was imperative to have a showdown outside the Yellow Dragon City. Lin Sun. Where on earth does this guy come from? These days, Chi Tsangmei thought about this problem more than once. Although she was appointed by the clan to be responsible for this action, she didn't know why the clan made such a decision. It was incredible. How could a young man of Human Gang realm deserve such an arrangement from the Chi family? After I kill you, perhaps I will be able to obtain the answer, Chi Tsangmei murmured in her heart. Her lonely and slender figure gradually went away on the long street at night. In the same night, Yellow Dragon City, commune of spiritual tattooists. A man in black with a hat covering half of his face walked into the commune of spiritual tattooists at night. After taking out a bronze badge representing the identity of a primary spiritual tattooist, the man was respectfully led into a quiet room by a maid. This was the treatment that only spiritual tattooists certified by the commune could enjoy. When the maid left, the man took off the hat covering his face, revealing a sharp and handsome face. It was Lin Sun. Fortunately, everything went well. Lin Sun sat down casually with his legs crossed, showing a relaxed look. Since entering the Yellow Dragon City, he had noticed that there were many eyes staring at him in the dark. Naturally, he would not be stupid enough to choose to practice in the Inn of Blessings. Therefore, he used Lu Xiaoyun as a cover to deliberately show his idea of practicing in order to attract the enemy's attention. Then he took the opportunity to dig the floor of the inn room, cut a secret passage with his saber, and left the Inn of Blessings without being noticed. Finally, he came to the commune of spiritual tattooists. In contrast, the environment in the commune of spiritual tattooists was undoubtedly the safest. With the primary spiritual tattooist badge he got from Chu Feng, he could receive the highest standard of treatment and protection. This also meant that Lin Sun didn't have to worry too much about being attacked by the enemy when he was practicing in the Earthgang realm. After a short rest, Lin Sun didn't waste any more time. He straightened his back, sat with his legs crossed, and began to run his cultivation quietly. As early as when he left Green Willow Town, Lin Sun had a premonition that his cultivation was about to break through. The reason why he practiced in seclusion now was to avoid being disturbed by the outside world. Clatter, the cultivation in his body was as thick as the ocean, and the surging and pure gang spirit roared like a tide. Soon, Lin Sun fell into a deep level of practice. In the Inn of Blessings, Lu Xiaoyun was still drinking leisurely. He crossed his legs and proudly fantasized about his revenge plan. The more he thought about it, the happier he was. He didn't know that he had been hated by a group of young masters in the Forbidden City in secret. What's more, he didn't know that Chi Tsangmei had issued an ultimatum to his Lu clan. All these misunderstandings were because he stayed with Lin Sun. It was inevitable to be suspected. If he didn't contact the people of Keystone Business in the Yellow Dragon City, it wouldn't cause a series of misunderstandings and make the situation worse. Unfortunately, Lu Xiaoyun, who didn't know the situation, only thought about how to save himself. He didn't think that his action of contacting Keystone Business in the Yellow Dragon City had been regarded as an action of helping Lin Sun by the enemy. Of course, Lu Xiaoyun knew nothing about it now. He was still drinking leisurely and entertaining himself. He was very comfortable. No! Suddenly, Lu Xiaoyun seemed to realize something. He frowned and fell into contemplation. That damn guy said that he was in closed-door training. Who knows if he was observing me in secret? No, I can't be too abnormal. I have to make do with this guy and put on a good show. Thinking of this, Lu Xiaoyun got up, pushed the door out of the room and came to the closed door of Lin Sun's room. He took a deep breath and showed a touch of grief and indignation on his face. He said in a hoarse voice with a little crying tone, "What do you want? I've cooperated with you to this extent. Can't you give me a clear answer? Bastard! Say something. What else do you want me to do?" He lowered his voice and spoke to the closed door of Lin Sun in a hoarse voice, which didn't attract much attention. Otherwise, he would be regarded as a psycho. It seemed that he didn't attract much attention. In fact, some people had noticed this scene in the dark. Soon, the news about Lu Xiaoyun's visit to Lin Sun in the middle of the night spread out. He said he was cooperating with the target? And he also asked the target to give him a clear answer? Outside the Inn of Blessings, in a stronghold, the bamboo-hatted man's face became gloomy when he heard the report of his subordinates. He gritted his teeth and said, "Lu Xiaoyun is really in the same boat with the target. Go and keep an eye on him. I'd like to see what tricks he wants to play with the target." At this time, Lu Xiaoyun returned to the room after a performance with both voice and emotion. He couldn't help laughing proudly again. This was normal. Through his performance, it was enough to numb the damn bastard so that he would not be suspicious. The more he thought about it, the more complacent he was. He complacently thought that his arrangement and plan this time were simply perfect. So, in the next few days, he would go to Lin Sun's closed door every day to perform. He was as persistent as a masochist. Those practitioners sent by Qi family who learned all the news had completely concluded that Lu Xiaoyun was simply insane. At this time, even if he took out real evidence to prove that he had nothing to do with Lin Sun, they would not believe it at all. On this day, the bamboo-hatted man suddenly realized a problem and his face changed slightly. These days, they only paid attention to Lu Xiaoyun, which made all of them ignore a problem. Chapter 310. Hurry up. Go and find out if the target is still in the room. When realizing this problem, the bamboo-hatted man had a bad feeling in his heart and almost gave an order subconsciously. Yes. Immediately, a subordinate hurried away. The Inn of Blessings. Lu Xiaoyun tidied up his clothes and was ready to perform in front of Lin Sun's room as usual. At this time, an attendant suddenly knocked on the door and sent a secret letter to Lu Xiaoyun. Lu Xiaoyun was stunned. He thought it was a secret letter from Keystone Business in Yellow Dragon City. But when he opened it, his pupils shrank. It read, "Child Lu, when you receive this letter, you will be very surprised. Don't guess, I am the damn bastard you mentioned." Lu Xiaoyun's face changed. Wasn't that guy in the next room? How could he send a secret letter to him? He continued to read. "Aren't you curious why I didn't kill you and took you with me? In fact, it's very simple. I'm using you." Use? Lu Xiaoyun was confused. Along the way, although Lin Sun had been very indifferent to him, he never showed any action of using him. Of course, you must be confused now, but you will understand soon. I hope you won't blame me at that time. Who asked you to offend me? I don't have many merits, but I'm good at seeking revenge for the smallest grievance. Lu Xiaoyun became more and more surprised. What the hell was this damn guy talking about? Well, are you more confused now? It doesn't matter. It's normal. I just want to tell you that I lied to you that day. In fact, you were not poisoned. This is just a punishment. Lu Xiaoyun's face suddenly became gloomy. Damn it, this guy was really playing with me. That was too much. However, knowing that he was not poisoned, he was still relieved in his heart and became much more timid. Are you very happy now? Lu Xiaoyun's lips couldn't help twitching. He scolded in his heart, happy my ass. Wait and see, don't let me catch you. However, you won't be happy soon. I can be very sure, so please don't take chances. Lu Xiaoyun gritted his teeth and wanted to tear up this secret letter. At this time, you still want to threaten me? I will never believe your words again. But due to the strong curiosity in his heart, Lu Xiaoyun couldn't help but watch. I'm guessing that you'll definitely think that I'm lying to you again. However, if I were you, the first thing I'd do right now would be to quickly seek help from your father. Perhaps you can even avoid this storm. If those enemies misunderstand that you're on my side, then you'll be completely finished. Lu Xiaoyun was completely confused. What enemy? What storm? Can't you King speak clearly? You asked me to ask my father for help. You damn bastard were really naive. I had contacted Keystone Business a few days ago, waiting to deal with you bastard. Although he thought so angrily in his heart, Lu Xiaoyun was very uneasy. He always felt that Lin Sun's words didn't seem to be deceiving him. He was too conflicted. Remember, there is no deep hatred between us. Don't be blinded by hatred. Of course, if you really don't want to believe me, that's up to you. I've already expressed my goodwill. If you're still unable to escape this calamity, then you can only say that you've caused your own death. At this point, the content of the whole secret letter came to an end. Lu Xiaoyun was completely driven mad. What did this guy mean? Why did he write such a *T secret letter? Taking a few deep breaths, Lu Xiaoyun suppressed the irritation in his heart and finally tore up the secret letter. He gritted his teeth and said, "Don't play tricks on me. I don't believe that any *T storm can hurt me." When he thought that he came from the Lu family, a middle-level aristocratic force in the Forbidden City, and his father Lu Tianzhao was a deacon elder with real power in the headquarters of Keystone Business, Lu Xiaoyun felt much more stable. He didn't believe that the storm and enemies mentioned by Lin Sun could do anything to him. Bang! 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 At this moment there was a rapid knock on the door, which seemed extremely rude, as if urging someone to come. Lu Xiaoyun's face darkened. Who the hell was this rude person? He went forward to open the door, but he was surprised to find an old man and a group of men in brocade clothes standing outside. They were Li Tianbao, the shopkeeper of Keystone Business in Yellow Dragon City, and his powerful subordinate. Lu Xiaoyun frowned and said unhappily, "Shopkeeper Li, why are you here all of a sudden? The time I agreed with you a few days ago is not at this time." In front of Li Tianbao, Lu Xiaoyun showed his arrogant and domineering look again. In terms of identity, he thought that he was much higher than Li Tianbao. However, to Lu Xiaoyun's surprise, Li Tianbao, who was respectful to him last time, sneered at this time with a touch of indifference on his face. He said coldly, "Child Lu, do you know that you have made a terrible mistake?" Lu Xiaoyun's face changed. "What did you say?" A hint of hatred appeared in Li Tianbao's eyes. "Young Master Lu, there's no need to feign ignorance at a time like this. Your actions this time almost killed me, and even almost dragged your Lu clan into a pit of fire. Don't tell me you still intend to be stubborn?" Lu Xiaoyun felt confused and cried, "What the hell are you talking about? Why can't I understand it at all?" He was indeed at a loss. What the hell was going on? Why did the things that they had agreed on suddenly turn out like this? When did he want to kill Li Tianbao? When did he want to drag his own clan down? Seeing Lu Xiaoyun's stubborn and unrepentant appearance, Li Tianbao was completely angry. He waved his hand and said, "Take him away!" Immediately, a group of men in brocade clothes rushed forward and pressed Lu Xiaoyun down without any explanation. Like a prisoner being escorted, no matter how Lu Xiaoyun screamed and scolded, he could not break free and was taken out of the Inn of Blessings. This time, Lu Xiaoyun was completely panicked and scared. He begged, shopkeeperly, "Can you tell me what the hell is going on?" Li Tianbao snorted coldly and said nothing. "Then you should tell me where to take me, right?" Lu Xiaoyun was desperate. "Where to? Of course, you will be escorted back to your Lu family. This is the order of your father himself." Li Tianbao looked at Lu Xiaoyun with pity and said, "Child Lu, eat your fill later. Maybe in the future. Well, forget it. Take care of yourself." Father's order. Suddenly, Lu Xiaoyun was like being struck by lightning. He almost couldn't believe his ears. How could it be possible? Why was it like this? Suddenly, a flash of lightning flashed in Lu Xiaoyun's mind. He suddenly remembered the secret letter from Lin Sun just now. "If I were you, the first thing I would do now is to ask your father for help. Maybe you can avoid this storm. If you are mistaken by those enemies that you are with me, you will be completely finished." When this paragraph was reflected in his mind, Lu Xiaoyun was stiff all over as if falling into an ice cave. He finally realized the problem. It turned out that Lin Sun's so-called use was to make his enemies suspect that he was with him. What made Lu Xiaoyun most frightened and confused was the background of Lin Sun's enemies. How could they make his father admit defeat and order people to escort him back to his clan? This storm was so big. At the moment when he walked out of the Inn of Blessings, Lu Xiaoyun glanced inadvertently and saw a group of people rushing into the room where Lin Sun was. But the room was empty. Where was Lin Sun? Damn it, I was completely cheated by this bastard. Boss, look, the boy has been taken away. This is retribution. How can a playboy like him intervene in some things? In the Inn of Blessings, a thin young man watched Lu Xiaoyun being taken away and couldn't help chuckling. This guy is not important. What's important is that the target has sneaked away under our eyes. The bamboo-hatted man's face was extremely gloomy and he couldn't be happy at all. Boss, I found something strange. The target dug a tunnel under the floor of the room. No wonder he could slip away under our eyes without being noticed. At this time, a subordinate came to report. Let's go and have a look. The bamboo-hatted man took a deep breath and strode to Lin Sun's room. When he saw the tunnel marks under the floor clearly, the bad premonition in his heart became stronger and stronger. Just by looking at the marks in the tunnel, he knew that the target had left on the first day he checked in the inn. "Can you find the exit of the tunnel?" the bamboo-hatted man asked in a deep voice. "It's on a street. We can't find the trace of the target. But young Mu has been dispatched. I believe he will lock the breath of the target soon." Hearing the name of young Mu, the bamboo-hatted man breathed a sigh of relief. Young Mu was one of his companions. He practiced a secret method called six senses sensing. As long as someone was stared at by him once, he would never be able to escape from his tracking. Spread the news that the target may have left the Yellow Dragon City. Let other teams be ready to search and encircle the target. The bamboo-hatted man immediately gave the order and then hurriedly left the Inn of Blessings with a group of subordinates. All their forces had been mobilized outside the Yellow Dragon City, including 5 Ziying battleship. If they lost the target this time and let the target escape the encirclement, the consequences would be unimaginable. Outside the Yellow Dragon City, Lin Sun followed the flow of people and walked along the road to the distance. He was dressed in ordinary clothes and his breath was inconspicuous. He was no different from ordinary practitioners. After dressing up, Lin Sun still looked the same, but his breath, look and behavior had changed dramatically. He was like a different person from before. This was an extremely profound disguise skill, which was an additional skill when he learned the assassination skill in the bloodthirsty camp. At this time, Lin Sun was like an honest, simple and ordinary young man. His appearance was inconspicuous and very easy to be ignored. I don't know whether Lu Xiaoyun has realized it or not. But if he wants to die, he can't blame anyone. Lin Sun thought as he walked forward. He didn't know that Lu Xiaoyun had been taken away like a prisoner, and it was his father Lu Tianzhao who gave the order. Chapter 3:11. At this time, the enemy should not have reacted yet, right? Lin Sun thought that his actions after entering the Yellow Dragon City were all under his control. First, he used Lu Xiaoyun as a cover to attract the enemy's attention, and then he entered the commune of spiritual tattooists secretly. After 4 days, he successfully broke through to the Earthgang realm. Until now, when he disguised himself and left the Yellow Dragon City, Lin Sun could clearly feel that the enemy who followed him like maggots in tarsal bones didn't appear. As long as I can leave the area covered by the Yellow Dragon City smoothly, there won't be many chances for the enemy to encircle me like before. Lin Sun had also studied the route. It was clear that there were many military forces guarding the Forbidden City on the way from the Yellow Dragon City to the Forbidden City, and there were many rich and prosperous cities on the way. This also meant that there were very, very few chances for the enemy to deal with him without causing any trouble. But Lin Sun didn't dare to be careless. According to the information he got from the interrogation, there were 3,000 elite practitioners who wanted to deal with him this time. In other words, the hundreds of practitioners killed along the way were just a small part of the enemy's strength. In this way, the real danger would inevitably appear on the next road. When Lin Sun was nearly 10 miles away from the Yellow Dragon City, there were fewer pedestrians on the road. Most of them had left by beast carriages, spiritual tattoo shuttles, and other means. Those who walked like Lin Sun were almost ordinary people. Only a small group of practitioners walked like Lin Sun. Huh? What happened in front? It's a group of practitioners. If you want to pass, you must go through their inspection. How could this be? Did something big happen again? Suddenly, there was an uproar on the road ahead, which aroused Lin Sun's vigilance. With a thought, the power of perception in his sea of consciousness spread out like a tide and instantly expanded to an unexpected place of thousands of meters. Immediately, he saw more than 50 black-clothed cultivators holding all kinds of spiritual weapons guarding the two sides of the road. In front of these practitioners, there was a long line. Only those who passed their inspection could pass smoothly. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed. The opponent's reaction speed was so fast. His gaze swept the surroundings, and he noticed that there were many faintly discernible auras hidden in the dense forest on both sides of the road. Obviously, it was impossible to avoid the road and take a detour through the forest on both sides. When he raised his head and swept his gaze across the sky, he could even notice that there were numerous black dots moving about high up in the sky. That was a wind shadowhawk. Lin Sun had noticed the existence of wind shadowhawks more than once on the way of being chased and besieged a while ago. He knew that this was a well-trained ferocious bird with extremely terrible detection ability. Looks like the enemy has already sealed off all the paths ahead. Lin Sun judged the situation in an instant and couldn't help frowning. Originally, he thought that he could fish in troubled waters and secretly avoid the enemy's eyes and ears after disguising himself, but obviously it didn't work. What to do? Should he enter the forest, adopt a roundabout strategy to mediate with the enemy, and look for an opportunity to find a way out, or should he directly break through the checkpoint ahead? Lin Sun was lost in thought. Now, he didn't know how many means the enemy had arranged here, so he had to be careful. At this time, there was a sudden sound of breaking through the air on the road behind him. Without looking back, Lin Sun knew that there were many practitioners in black rushing towards him. Was he discovered? Lin Sun thought of this and mingled with the ordinary people in the crowd, looking on coldly. He needed a chance to judge the situation. When the group of practitioners in black rushed over, the crowd couldn't help but become restless. They changed their expressions and dodged to the side of the road. Wait! Just as the group of cultivators was about to dash past the crowd and rush forward, the leader of the group, a man with fair skin and a devilish bloody glow in his eyes, suddenly stopped. In an instant, the group of practitioners behind him also stopped. The leader's pupils were like dark red beads. He glanced at the crowd coldly and sniffed the air carefully with his nose at the same time. It seemed that he was smelling something. A group of murderous practitioners and a strange man with scarlet eyes made those ordinary people change their expressions and feel uncomfortable. They didn't know what was going on. Immediately, the leader's eyes fell on Lin Sun, and his pupils suddenly lit up. He shouted, "Target!" As soon as the words came out, there was a bang. An arrow tore the void like a flowing light and rushed to the leader. Unexpectedly, the leader suddenly let out a strange cry, and his figure flashed strangely like a big bat, dodging the attack. Bang! In the end, the arrow missed the target and shot a bottomless hole in the ground. Smoke and dust filled the air. Lin Sun couldn't help but be a little surprised that the leader could avoid his attack. Immediately, he had no time to think more and rushed to the lush forest in the distance. "Where are you going?" "The target has appeared." "Go after him." "Send a signal to inform everyone to prepare for battle." For a while, it was a mess here. Most of the pedestrians were ordinary people. They were frightened by the sudden battle and screamed in panic and fled. But no one cared about their lives. When they found Lin Sun, the group of practitioners in black had tried their best to kill Lin Sun. At the same time, the enemies who had been hiding in this area were also alarmed. They sent signals and started to take action. Kill! 7 or 8 practitioners in black rushed up to stop Lin Sun from escaping. Lin Sun didn't even look at them. He slashed out with his saber. At that moment, a flowing light tore the darkness and rushed out of hell, shocking the souls. Puff, puff. In an instant, the 7 or 8 practitioners in black were killed by Lin Sun's saber like vulnerable straws. They died on the spot with blood flowing out. Taking this opportunity, Lin Sun was about to rush into the forest. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes and stopped in an instant. In his perception, there were at least hundreds of figures rushing towards him like a tide in the depths of the forest. How could there be so many enemies? Lin Sun was shocked. At this moment, the 4 directions of east, west, south and north of Lin Sun were all filled with the enemies. They were densely packed, and from time to time, more practitioners would rush over from different directions. Kill! The target is here. The shouts were so loud that the world was filled with smoke and dust. It was extremely chilling. It's not like Su Qianjing's tactics. It's too barbaric and rough. A cold light flashed across Lin Sun's black eyes, and his expression instantly became focused, calm, indifferent, and tranquil. In his body, the gang power, which had just been promoted to Earth Gang realm, reached its peak in an instant like an erupting volcano, making him surrounded by illusory cyan luster, bright and blazing like a deity. Hum in his palm, the dark and simple flowing light saber suddenly made a sound, releasing a terrible and frightening aura. It was like an ancient beast waking up from a deep sleep, eager to drink blood. Kill! 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 From all directions, the enemies had rushed over like a tide. All of them were surrounded by murderous aura and amazing momentum. The failure of the encirclement and suppression operations in the past few days had long proved that the target they were going to deal with this time was extremely terrible. Even if they had a large number of people on their side, no one dared to take it lightly. On the contrary, no matter who it was at this moment, they had used their strongest power. For a time, various colored lights flashed through the heavens and the earth, and they crisscrossed together like dense raindrops. Numerous martial Dao combat skills poured down like a waterfall, and they rumbled as they crushed through space and emanated rumbling that sounded like thunderclap. Such a scene was truly too terrifying. Hundreds of elite practitioners were all at Human Gang Realm, and there were many powerful figures like Earth Gang Realm and Heaven Gang Realm. At this time, they acted together like a brave army, which could sweep away thousands of enemies and crush mountains and rivers. The most chilling thing was that under such encirclement and suppression, all the retreat had been blocked. There was no way to escape or avoid. If it were other practitioners, they would have been deterred by this kind of horrible momentum, collapsed fighting spirit and waited for death. However, in the face of such encirclement and suppression, Lin Sun's lips suddenly showed a cold smile. He didn't dodge or avoid and looked calm and indifferent. In his palm, the flowing light saber, which had been constantly humming, suddenly rose into the air. Buzz! At this instant, along with a wisp of a strange howl, this expanse of the heavens and the earth seemed to have fallen into eternal night while countless stars descended and emanated dazzling light. RFS. As soon as Lin Sun attacked, he didn't hesitate to use his strongest means. The enemies who had surrounded him were in a trance, and their bodies and minds fell into a great horror. They felt like falling into the dark abyss and couldn't extricate themselves. This was the deterrent power of martial arts. The more ancient the top martial arts were, the more terrible the power contained. RFS, one of the 3 moves of Tianyuan saberplay, was inherited in the Heaven Accessing Place. Its origin was extremely mysterious. After Lin Sun went through the life and death training in 100 battles, he finally reached the mastery of RFS. Therefore, when he attacked at this moment, the power of RFS was completely different from that of the past. It had a majestic momentum and a kind of terrible deterrent that went straight to people's hearts. The most important thing was that after Lin Sun reached Earthgang Realm, his strength was no longer the same as before. Puff, puff, puff. As soon as the saber came out, it was like the eternal night came and the stars fell. Under this saber, hundreds of practitioners who rushed up all stopped their movements at the same time, like frozen statues. Immediately, the bodies of those practitioners all exploded. Blood burst like waterfall and minced meat like rain, dyeing the void red,